All right, we are getting everything going here. Many steps we got to take to get these live started when I'm going on multiple platforms. So, but I usually do that before we turn the cameras on. But once the camera comes on, we got to do extra stuff for LinkedIn specifically and also for Instagram. All right. So we are active on LinkedIn. We are active on Facebook. Good morning. We're active on X. We are active on Rumble, and we are active on YouTube. Instagram, we are good. TikTok, good morning. We're going to get into what we need to get into here today. I told y'all that this one was coming. I got a bunch of topics that I've been holding on to that I wanted to get into. We're going to get into one of them here today. We're not going to do every one of them all at the same time because there's too much stuff that needs to be talked about. But today we're going to explain this phenomenon that many of you have heard of. Maybe you heard people talking about it. It's called Trump derangement syndrome. I couldn't fit the whole title into the title over there on TikTok, so I had to shorten it up to give something that just might get you all's attention. But as you get in here, y'all see what we're talking about. Topic here today is Trump derangement syndrome. First of all, before I even get started with the topic and in the topic explaining it, I first need to ask who y'all think is going to win this fight tonight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Who y'all think is going to win the fight? How long is the fight? If any of you know how long this fight is supposed to be, how many rounds are they scheduled to fight? Is it 8 rounds, 6 rounds, 4 rounds, 10 rounds? Who do you think is going to win, and how long is the fight scheduled to actually be? I would probably personally, I say the shorter the fight, I would say Mike Tyson has a chance. But if it goes the distance, how long is the fight? What's the distance of the fight? Like the full length that they are scheduled to fight each other. Anybody know how long the fight actually is? Because I would say if the fight goes the distance, it was only 2 minutes per round. Okay. 2 minutes per round, Mike Tyson has a chance. It's an 8-round fight. If it goes 8 rounds, Mike Tyson ain't winning. I don't think Mike Tyson's going to win. He's fighting a guy who's half his age. 8 rounds, I don't think he has a chance. But 8 rounds, if it goes shorter, if there's a knockout, Mike Tyson has a chance to win by knocking somebody out, but knocking Jake Paul out rather. But if it goes the distance, I don't think he has a chance to win. So anyway, let's get into the topic here today. The topic again today is TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. What I'm going to do is explain what this is. I first heard of this term. First time I heard it was probably during the 2016 campaign cycle when Trump was first running, and people just seemed to get way too excited. And excitement can be negative or it can be positive, but way too excited just talking about this guy and taking everything that he did and everything that he said and everything that was allegedly said or done by him and just blowing it completely out of proportion. It seemed like people were just kind of losing their minds about this guy. So even though I named over on TikTok, I named it Trump deranged with a question mark. It's not really about him being deranged. It's about people being deranged about him. So we call it Trump derangement syndrome when people just seem to blow everything about him, whether true or not, completely out of proportion because they're trying as hard as they can to make him look bad. And then we all know that this is what they're doing. I'm going to explain how Trump derangement syndrome hit its all-time peak last week at the end of, once we got the outcome from the 2024 election. So let me introduce myself first. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books. I've done 4 sauce. I created this company that is called Work on Your Game. We work with professionals, entrepreneurs, sales teams, people who want to become entrepreneurs, people who want to become professionals, focused on 4 main pillars: mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability. And our company, you can find more out about it just by going to the links in my bios, whatever app you're watching me on. We're on 7 different streaming platforms right now at the same time. So I will, and also before I get into my points, I will address everybody's questions. If you have a question or comment, I'll address them after I get through my points that I have here today. I got around 10 or 11 points. We'll see. Sometimes I'll blend points together. Once I get through all the points, then I'll address questions and comments. But if you have any question or comment while I'm talking, you can put it in the comments. Those of you on TikTok specifically, because TikTok tends to have the largest audience of the stream right now. We got about 180 people on TikTok. If you have something you want me to actually address, you might want to wait until I get around to addressing TikTok comments, because I might not see one that you post right now. So let's get into this whole Trump derangement syndrome. How does it happen? Where does it come from? And where does it take us? So first thing we have to understand is that Trump derangement syndrome is actually, what it actually is cognitive dissonance. That's what it actually is. So I'm going to I'm going to ask, what's this app called? I'm going to ask ChatGPT to explain cognitive dissonance, and then I'm going to read what it says here, and then I'm going to give you my explanation of what this is. So cognitive dissonance this is from ChatGPT. I'm just reading from ChatGPT. Cognitive dissonance is a psychological concept that occurs when a person holds two or more conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes, or when their behavior conflicts with their beliefs. This conflict creates psychological discomfort, which people are motivated to reduce. That's what Trump derangement syndrome actually is. If you had to explain it in let's say, a academic way, what you would call it is cognitive dissonance. So some examples of cognitive dissonance is when your belief and your actions are in conflict. So if you say something like, it's a bad idea to do drugs, and then you do some drugs, that's cognitive dissonance, because you said it was bad, but then you're actually doing the thing you told yourself not to do. Decision-making conflict. So if you go buy something that's really expensive and then you start worrying, well, was it worth it to buy that thing because it costs too much money? There's cognitive dissonance right there. How do you make sense of that? A moral conflict. You consider yourself honest, but then you just lied to somebody. That's cognitive dissonance. And what people do to reduce cognitive dissonance, again, this is all sourced by ChatGPT right here. So thank you, ChatGPT. It says one of the things is you can change one of the conflicting elements. So you can say, so if you say doing drugs is bad and then you catch yourself doing drugs, you can say, well, doing drugs is not that bad. Or maybe every once in a while I can do drugs. That's an example of how we resolve cognitive dissonance. Another example is you can add new cognitions. So you could say something like, well, junk food is terrible. I shouldn't eat junk food at all. But then you just ate a Snickers bar. You can say, well, this junk food this is a healthy Snickers bar. This is low fat soda that I'm drinking, or no calorie soda. So it's okay for me to consume the junk food. Or you can downplay the importance of the things. You can say, if you say something like lying is a bad thing, and then you go lie to somebody and you know you lied, you can look in the mirror and say, well, lying is not such a bad thing. Every once in a while, it makes sense to lie just to protect other people. These are all examples of cognitive dissonance. It's also known as rationalizations. These are things that all of us do. All humans, we are all guilty of this. Anytime we find ourselves doing something that is in conflict with what we have claimed in the past, or what we claim to be about, or claim to believe, or claim to stand on, there's a conflict that we experience. And most human beings do not want to live in a state of conflict. So what we do is we come up with a rationalization, which is basically a rationalization. You can break that word down into two words: rational lies. We come up with a rational lie that makes us feel all right about us going against the grain of the very thing that we said that we were about. So I think it was that lady Laura asked hypocrisy. Yes, it's a form of hypocrisy. But usually when we say hypocrisy, we're pointing the finger at somebody else. So it's internal hypocrisy, which is also internal conflict, which is, again, academically known as cognitive dissonance. And we all have to figure this out in our own mind. So I'm explaining to you cognitive dissonance because what Trump derangement syndrome is actually cognitive dissonance. And I'm going to explain how so as we get into our points here today. So in order for someone to experience cognitive dissonance when it comes to Donald Trump, and that what we call Trump derangement syndrome, or TDS, I may just shorten it to TDS throughout this class, so I don't have to keep saying those three words. There are certain beliefs that have to be held on to by a person for them to experience this. Now, I will say that the TDS I'm going to explain here today is based on the outcome of the election. It's based on the outcome of the election for people to get the Trump derangement syndrome. And Julia on TikTok said, do I have TDS? I absolutely do not have TDS. All right, you must be new around here. If you've heard me in my lives for the last 2 months, there's no way you could think I have TDS. I try to think and explain things as objectively as possible. I consider myself to be a critical thinker. And through the things I've been sharing here over the last 2 months, I think most of you would agree. But if you disagree, you can let me know. But anyway, there are certain beliefs that need to be in place. And what I'm going to explain here is based on the outcome of the election. Now, once people had TDS even before Trump won any election back in 2016. Even when he won before he even won the nomination, people were starting to experience TDS. And the reason they were starting to experience it, I'll explain as I get into my point. So here's the first belief. All right, the first belief that you must have in order to get diagnosed with Trump derangement syndrome is you must believe that Donald Trump in somehow, some way is a bad guy. And when I say a bad guy, meaning you believe he's just morally a not good person. He's corrupt. He does crime. He is not a good business person. He's not a smart man. He doesn't have positive intentions. Anyone who gets around him, things are going to get worse for you. Put it in the comments, all the negative things people say about him. I mean, as a person, I don't mean like the outcomes. I don't mean like, well, he had this many bankruptcies and he got indicted and he has these many convictions and he got impeached. I don't mean the outcomes. I'm talking about the things that people say about him as a human being that make him a bad person. So Lady Laura said misogynist. So that kind of thing. He's a misogynist. These things just about his character as a person. So the first thing that you must have in place in order to qualify for Trump derangement syndrome is you must believe that Donald Trump is just a bad person in character. I don't mean like he has bad outcomes. Every human on the planet has experienced outcomes that we didn't want. So when I say he's a bad person, that means you believe in his character, in his heart as a human being, outside of business, politics, anything else. He's just a bad guy. Shiloh says objectively dishonest. Someone asked me, do I support Trump? I don't support any politician. I just look at them and see what they're doing and I give my commentary, which I'm doing right here. So it's not really about me supporting or being against him. It's just I'm objectively sharing with you what I see. So the first thing is you got to believe he's a bad guy. OK, you must believe he's a really, really bad guy, because on top of this is the founding principle of everything else. So when I tell you that our company Work on Your Game is based around mindset, strategy, systems, accountability, mindset's the foundation. Foundation of what we do is mindset. Foundation of TDS is you must believe that Trump's a bad guy. If you don't think he's a bad guy, then you cannot acquire Trump derangement syndrome. So the only people who have TDS, they absolutely must believe that Donald Trump's a bad guy. Everybody got it? All right. Now here's the second belief. The second belief that must be established in order for you to acquire Trump derangement syndrome is you must believe that most human beings, i.e., American citizens who have the right to vote or they have the right to an opinion. In America, you do have a right to an opinion. We call it free speech. You believe that most Americans are generally good, upstanding, and morally high quality people. You have to believe that most people in America, when I say most, that means at least half, more than half of the people in America are generally good people. You don't know everybody, but you think most people in your experience in life are pretty much good people. The experiences that you've had so far, the 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 people you've ever met in your life, even though America has 300 plus million, the people you've met in your experience, they are generally good people. They are morally upstanding people. They are honest people. They're hardworking people. They want quality things for themselves and their lives and their families and the community, etc. You have to believe that most people are generally good people. All right, that's the second belief. So we're getting these beliefs so far for TDS. Number one, you got to believe Trump's a bad guy. Number two, you have to believe that, and thank you for the hearts and help me hit the goal over here on TikTok. Number two, you got to believe that most people are good people. So Trump's a bad person, but most people are the opposite of him. They're actually good people. Here's the third belief. All right, the third belief is based on belief number one and number two. Since Trump's a bad guy, and since most people are good people, there's no way that a large percentage of people would ever support Trump. So you need all three. So here's the third belief. Since Trump's a bad guy and most people are good people, there's no way that a bunch of good people will support a bad guy. That's the third belief that you must have in order to acquire Trump derangement syndrome. All right. And these are only three beliefs. And now I'm going to explain how it ends up working out, how it ends up playing out in our minds once you understand this. OK, so let me say it one more time. I'm going to give you the three things you must have in place in order to acquire acute TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. Number one, you must believe that he's a terrible guy, a bad guy as a person. Number two, you must believe that most people are not bad people. They're actually good people. And number three, you must believe, because of number one and number two, is no way that all these good people will support a bad guy. All right. Those are the three things you need in place in order to acquire Trump derangement syndrome. Now, let's talk about what happens after that. Now, when Trump wins anything, so let's say he won the nomination in 2015. Then he won the nomination again in 2020. Then he won the nomination again in 2024. So he won the nomination three times. the Republican ticket. He won the election twice, at least. And this is when people started to get TDS, because they're like, wait a minute, this guy's a bad guy and most people are good people. How could so many people support him? How is that possible? This is when people started to get TDS, because see, if he just showed up and he put himself out there as a politician, and you believing, okay, that's belief number one, because he's a bad guy, but he put himself out there. There are a lot of politicians you might think are bad people who try to get into politics, but they don't win, because the good, smart people out there. And also you could add on to that second belief that most people are good. Also, most people are smart. Most people are logical. Most people are rational, reasonable, and they're highly informed. Or if you believe that about most people, when Trump shows up, because people are good, smart, rational, and highly informed, there's no way they would support him because he's a bad guy. But then when that doesn't happen, well, what happens is the process gets broken. All right, something in your brain breaks. You're like, wait a minute, most people are good people, but they support this guy who's a terrible guy. How is that possible? And people had to make sense of that. This is where the cognitive dissonance comes in. You understand? When I gave you the example of cognitive dissonance, if you had to put it in a really simple concept, it's when the lab test is altered by reality, is when you had this certain thought in your head of this is the way life is. And then you go out into the world with these beliefs of how life is. And then you immediately get smacked in the face with reality that life is not like that. That's what we call cognitive dissonance. I thought it was one way, it's actually the other way. And if you see the TV show The Wire, I remember when there was this guy named Marlowe. He was the biggest drug dealer in town, at least at that time. And he went into a convenience store and he stole some stuff from the store right in front of the security guard. And the security guard saw him steal the stuff. And Marlowe just looked at the security guard right in his face and just walked out like as if the security guard didn't exist. And the security guard came out there to talk to Marlowe like, man, I know who you are and all that, but I'm not trying to step to you, but come on, you're going to disrespect me like that. And Marlowe said to the security guard, well, you think it's one way, it's actually the other way. All right, that's cognitive dissonance. All right, you think it's good, you want it to be one way, but it's actually the other way. And that's when you experience this, like, how are these people supporting this guy who I've already established is a bad guy in my own mind, but reality is telling me something different. I got to make sense of this. Now, here's what happens when your equation gets broken, because this is the TDS. When your equation gets broken, and this applies to all of us, because this happens to all of us at different times in life, we have to figure out what to do next. And by the way, I'll answer all questions and comments at the end when I'm done. So if you're leaving a comment while I'm talking, I'll address them at the end. Now you got to change your formula. Your equation must change. Now, here's the problem with most human beings. If you are new to my world or relatively new to my content, these are things that I say over and over again. I didn't just make these up for today's topic. Most human beings are really, really bad at changing their beliefs about anything. Most human beings are really bad at changing their behaviors around anything. This is the reason why most people do not grow and do not change. All right, there are three truths you should understand about human beings. Most human beings are lazy. Most people do not think, and most people do not read. And the things that cause people to get smarter and get better usually is written down. It's not spoken words, usually written down. You have to read things. Most people do not want to think because that's mental work, and thinking is mental exercise that most people don't do. And most people are just generally lazy, and they don't want to do anything that will push them out of their comfort zone and require more effort than just doing the same things. That's the law of inertia. It's easier to keep doing the same thing than it is to do something different. So when you understand that, then you understand why most people do not grow, do not change, do not advance, do not improve or evolve in any way once they hit adulthood. There's only one period of life when you get better by default without trying. That's called puberty. Are you familiar with puberty? If you're over the age of 21, you have already experienced puberty. That's the period where you just grow without trying. All right. So I have a son, he's 2 years old. He's going to grow without even trying to do anything. All right, he can have poor nutrition, poor health habits, poor everything. Nobody even trying to make him better. He's going to grow between now and the age of 18, 21-ish without even trying. That's the only time in life where you grow without trying. After the age of, let's just say 21, after you have completed puberty, any other growth that you experience for the rest of your life must be done intentionally and consciously. And a joke that I tell people often is that if you are over the age of 30 and you haven't seen any of your high school classmates in a long time, don't worry. You don't need to go to the reunion, and you don't need to get on Facebook to go find them to find out what happened to them. I'll tell you what happened to them. Most of them just got older, fatter, and uglier. Or other than that, they have not changed. They're the exact same person that you knew when you were in 12th grade. Other than that, they have not advanced or gotten better at all. Why is this? I just told you. Most people do not think, they don't read, and they're lazy. This is the reason why most people don't grow. I'm giving you all of that background to help you understand the cognitive dissonance that people experience, and why when most people experience cognitive dissonance, the last thing they do is question their own beliefs, because questioning your own beliefs requires mental energy and emotional energy that most people are unwilling to exert. This is why most people don't get better. Because to get better, you're going to have to change the way you think about things. And this is why most people don't advance. So your opportunity, folks, the opportunity in life is always in the opposites. Opportunity being in the opposites means you need to look around in life and look at what most people are doing and how most people behave, and do the opposite of that. You put yourself in line for a high level of success, because you'll have very little competition. Earl Nightingale talking about this in one of his audio tapes back in the day. Go into any space, any of you who's stepping into a new space and you're not quite sure what to do or how to do it, look at what everybody else is doing, do the opposite of that. There's your opportunity right there. Because I just told you, most people do not think, they don't read, and they're lazy. All right, so if you just do the opposite of that, boom, you got an opportunity. Just like that. I'm giving you all that background to help you understand. And I'll take all questions and comments at the end, by the way. Help you understand the cognitive dissonance and how it leads to Trump derangement syndrome. Whenever you experience something in life where reality has slapped you in the face and told you that your beliefs were maybe not as true as you thought they were, you have a choice. You have a choice. And I'll explain to you how I went through this. Those of you who have been watching my lives for some time, you've heard me tell this story, but I'm going to keep telling it because it needs to be told. And those of you who haven't heard me before, I'll explain it. In 2016, I did not think it was possible that Trump could win, because I had these same three beliefs. I believed that Trump, well, I didn't think he was a bad person as a human. I just thought that he did not have what it took to become president of the United States. And that was belief number one. He didn't have what it took to be president because he had no experience. I knew he was a TV guy, a real estate guy. He was a business mogul, whatever you want to call that. And he was a guy who loved getting attention. I believe that Trump was just a guy who was looking for attention. And I understood a little bit about how politics works. That sometimes someone runs for a political office, specifically presidency, not because they actually think they're going to win or that they're even trying to win. They run for president because of all the attention they get just from trying. And then they'll drop out of the race, or they'll lose the race, and then they'll go write a book, get a new TV show, etc. And they'll be able to have a whole new career just based off the attention they got in losing in their attempt. Just by trying, you get all this extra attention. For example, look at Kamala Harris. All right, most of us weren't paying much attention to Kamala Harris until she was running for president. Now, Kamala Harris is going to have a whole bunch of business opportunities available to her for the rest of her career, just because she ran for president and didn't win. I don't think she's going to run for president again. I don't think she's the best candidate Democrats can put up there. I don't think she's going to run again, but she's going to have a whole lot of business opportunities available just because she ran for president and all the attention she got from running for president. And I thought Donald Trump was going to do the same thing in 2016 that I just predicted Kamala's going to do now. So I figured he was going to run. Maybe he'll win. I didn't think he'd win the nomination. He won the nomination. All right, he's going against Clinton. I figured Clinton's going to beat him pretty easily because most people are not going to vote for some guy who has no political experience, and he has all these negative headlines about him, all this negative press about him. I figured, all right, I've been to damn near every state in America. I've been to a bunch of countries. I've met enough people. There's no way that more than half the country is going to agree with this guy, because I didn't agree with this guy. I didn't agree. When I say I didn't agree with him, I don't mean I didn't agree with his policies or the things he was saying. I didn't agree with the concept of him being president. I didn't think that was even possible. I didn't think there was any way that could happen. I figured he would lose in a blowout. I figured that Hillary would do to him what he just did to Kamala Harris. That's what I figured was going to happen. And then he won. So I remember this day. And by the way, I'm on YouTube. Those of you who are following me on all these other apps, make sure you go on YouTube and look up this video, because I did a video where in 2016, it was November 9th, because the election, I believe, was on the 8th. So on the 9th, we knew that Trump won. I didn't stay up to see the results. I didn't figure it was anything to watch. I woke up the next morning and saw that Trump won. I was like, how the hell did he win? And I remember I went to the gym. At the time, I was a member of LA Fitness. And I went to the gym and I was thinking that there was going to be like anarchy and people were going to be going crazy. And it was just normal. Nothing had changed. Everybody was behaving the exact same way. And I remember, and the gym was like a 5-minute walk from where I lived at the time. And I went to the gym, did my workout. There was black people in there. There were white people in there. There were men in there. There were women in there. No one seemed to be doing anything different as a result of Trump winning the election. And during that workout, my workout was only like 20, 30 minutes. My brain was starting to break. I'm like, I heard, because at the time I was listening to a lot of people who had TDS. I didn't know they had TDS. I was taking in a lot of my information from people who had TDS, specifically through the internet. And they were all making it seem like if Trump wins, there's going to be it's going to be crazy. All right, there's going to be anarchy in the streets, and everyone who's not a heterosexual white male, they're going to lose all their rights, and they're going to round you all up, and it's all going to be terrible for everybody if Trump wins the election. I was thinking that would happen if he won, but I figured, well, he's not going to win, so we don't have to worry about those things happening. Then when I woke up that morning, November 9th, 2016, and he won, I said, oh man, I might not want to go outside. Now, that's not serious. I'm kind of being tongue in cheek there. I go outside and I go to the gym, and I come back from the gym, and everything in life seems normal. And just in that time, it only took me about 30 minutes. Now, see, some people have had Trump derangement syndrome for 10 years. I didn't have derangement syndrome, but I experienced cognitive dissonance. All right. My cognitive dissonance was solved in about 30 minutes. And I'll tell you what I did. It took me 30 minutes to resolve my cognitive dissonance, because the first thing that happened was when I woke up that day, I said, Trump won. Oh, it was going to get crazy, because that's what had been planted in my mind from the media that I was taking in at that time, which all was at the time. I didn't realize this. It was all very leftist, heavily left, and very heavily anti-Trump. And that's a mistake by me. I own that mistake. And I'll tell you about that in a moment. So then when I went to the gym, again, 30 minutes, go to the gym, come back. During that 30 minutes, being a critical thinker that I am, I wasn't thinking as critically as I thought I was back then, but I'm still a critical thinker. I said, well, they said it was going to be crazy. It's not crazy. That must mean that I got fooled. I came to that conclusion within 30 minutes. Some of you have had the same problem for 10 years. And here's the thing about just success in life, folks, on a tangent here. The most successful people in life are not necessarily better than you, stronger than you, more intelligent than you, or have more resources than you. They just get the same things done faster. So I was able to get through my cognitive dissonance in 30 minutes. Some of you are still experiencing cognitive dissonance a decade later. That's the problem. The problem is you're just too slow. So I had the same problem you had. I just resolved it quicker. So how I resolved the problem was I said, all right, obviously I got some bad information. Let me go and figure out who has positive things to say about Trump as a candidate. Who is happy that Trump won the election? Again, this is 2016 we're talking. Who's happy that he won? And why do they believe this? What was I not told? There has to be something that I wasn't told, because there's no way the things that I heard about him, there's no way that people voted because of that. There has to be some other reasons that I don't know about. And I had to go find out what those were. So I made this video. It's on YouTube to this very day. Let me look up this video so I can tell y'all exactly what the title of the video is, because I remember making this video. I remember making it at the pool deck at my building the day that he won that election. I've made so many videos talking about him since then. Now it's harder for me to find it. But back then it was the only one that I had. And let me see. I think it was called Trump is President, Now What? I think that was the title. And it was episode number, where is it? Oh, here it is. Donald Trump is president. Here's what you need to do now. This video came out 8 years ago. It's on YouTube. Again, it's titled Donald Trump is president. Here's what you need to do now. Here's the video right here. And you see I got the Make America Great Again thumbnail. That's what I put on there. So y'all can find this video on YouTube. And again, the date was November 9th, 2016. All right. So I'm taking you through my path of getting over my own cognitive dissonance by telling you how to get over yours. In that video, I explained to people what I had come to the conclusion of in the course of about 30 minutes. That because right before that, we had Barack Obama, right, for 8 years. I said, if Barack Obama's 8 years did not make your life just automatically amazing, then there's no way that 4 years of Donald Trump, because they kind of juxtapose them as like opposites, right? So if Barack Obama was this great person and your life didn't become amazing, then if Donald Trump's a terrible person, your life can't become terrible. Because if Obama's presidency didn't change your life significantly, then Trump's shouldn't change it either, in a positive or a negative way. And that logically made a whole lot of sense to me. Still makes sense to me to this day. And we've had, 4 years of Trump, 4 years of Biden. Now we got Trump again. Has any of your lives changed or been altered significantly because of the president? Maybe you want to think that's the case, but it's generally not the case. We go on Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. What's actually changed? And I explained that back then in 2016. So what I did then after that very day, I went on the internet, because at that time I was already not listening to the news anymore, because I understood their game. But the internet was doing the same thing the news was doing. It wasn't as advanced as it is now, where we have a lot more balance if you're willing to absorb it. So I went on social media, and this is what I started doing. I said, I got to go find the people who are actually happy that Trump won, who've been saying positive things about him, who support him, who are MAGA supporters. I got to follow some of these people. I got to find out what they're saying, because there's no way they voted for him because he's racist, or they voted for him because he's misogynist, or they voted for him because he's xenophobic, or they voted for him because all the negative stuff. I said there has to be some other reasons. So I started following people from like Fox, people who were on the right, people who were doing live streams talking about Trump, people who were taking the stuff that was being said about him and they were explaining it in a way that made it make more logical sense. And I said, oh, there's a whole bunch of other reasons that people support him. There's a whole bunch of other things that people like about him. Oh, I realized, again, this is in a very short period of time, probably a week of listening to these people and following them and reading their stuff. I realized I had been fooled. I realized that I had been the fool. Now, here's the thing. I want you to understand that point. I said it twice for a reason. Most people, when they experience cognitive dissonance, the last thing they will ever do is admit that they have been fooled. The last thing most people ever do is admit that they were wrong. Most human beings never admit that they're wrong. Most human beings will never admit that they had the wrong information. Most human beings will never admit that their perspective was based on faulty information. Most human beings will never admit that, damn, now that I have some new information, let me change my opinion. Most human beings never do that. Most humans, some of you I'm talking about right now, and many of you know people who fit this description for sure, will never, ever change their opinions on anything, even though an opinion should be very open and subjective to change. Here's what the understanding you have to have. Your beliefs should not change that often, but your opinions are flexible. You can change your opinions the same way you change your clothes. You don't wear the same clothes every day, right? Even if you wear the same clothes more than once, you wash them in between. All right, so your opinion should be completely flexible, ladies and gentlemen. Every opinion that you have should be flexible, meaning I am willing to change this perspective given new information, new experiences, and new points of view. If I get a different point of view from someone else, I get different information, or I get a different experience in my life, I'm willing to change my opinion on subject X, Y, Z, whatever it is. Every opinion that I have, I'll let you all know this up front. Every opinion I have today, I am willing to change. Every opinion I have is subject to change. So I might tell you something today that's my opinion, and 6 months from now, I can tell you the exact opposite, and I'll tell you I changed my opinion. I'll tell you why I changed my opinion. I got new information. I got a new perspective. I had a new experience in life. It changed my opinion about this thing. I used to think it was this way, but now I believe it's this way because here's the new thing that I went through that made me think differently. All of you should have this type of mindset. Critical thinkers, this is the way we think as just a normal modus operandi. We don't even have to be told to do this. This is our normal mode of thinking. We're open to changing our opinion on anything and everything, regardless of what it is. Most people are not critical thinkers. Most people are emotional thinkers. Everything is based on emotion. In other words, they get an opinion that's based on their emotions, and they're not even open to hearing anybody saying anything that goes against the grain of what they have chosen to believe. And again, what did I tell you? This is the reason why most people don't change, because their ego is tied to their emotions. And when your ego is tied into something, it's very hard for you to allow that to be challenged. This is why people are like, I don't want to hear anything that sounds like it goes against the grain of what I've chosen to believe. There should be a handful of things that you believe that you are never going to change. They're etched in stone. They're also known as principles. Those are etched in stone. They're not changing. Everything else is subject to change. And most people treat their opinions as if they're principles. This is a bad idea. Treating your opinions like principles means I'm not going to change anything that I believe, any opinion that I have, just because it's my opinion. And here's the funny thing going further on opinions. Most people's opinions are based on paper thin, surface level bullshit. Most people's opinions that they won't change is based on surface level nonsense, such as, I'll give you some examples. And here are some examples of opinions that are based on bullshit. Any of you have these, I'm talking to you. Number one, any opinion that you have because that's the way you were raised and that's what your parents did and that's what your parents thought. All right, that's a bullshit opinion. Doesn't mean you can't continue to hold that opinion if you can come up with a logical justification for it. But if that's the reason you have the opinion, that's a bullshit reason to have an opinion. Now, every opinion that you got from your parents, you should question it and challenge it and ask yourself, is this really accurate? Is it still accurate? Maybe it was accurate back then. Is it accurate now? Maybe it was accurate. Maybe it's accurate, but not for the reason that they gave me. All right. You should be willing to challenge every single thing. How many of you listen to this are parents yourselves? And when you became a parent, you realized, or you decided, maybe even before you had a kid, that, you know what, my parents raised me this way, but I'm going to take some things that my parents did and I'm going to do it differently. Put the word me in the chat if that fits if you fit that description, that you're a parent now and there are some things that your parents did to you that you don't do to your kids. Put the word me in the chat if that's you. Doesn't mean you took everything your parents did and threw it away. Maybe you kept some of it, but there's some of it you threw away. Right? How many of you put the word me in the chat? That's you. Okay, so I see a bunch of you saying that. So it's the same thing with all your opinions. So just look at it like that. And I'll give you an example in a minute. If there are things that your parents did to raise you and you became a contributing member of society, right? With all that stuff that your parents did, some of it that you maybe disagreed with. When you became a parent, you kept some of the things your parents did and you threw some things away. We call that, the metaphor I use for that is eat the meat and spit out the bones. Which means you can disagree with someone on some things and agree with them on other things, and that's completely fine. You don't have to agree with someone 100% on anything in order to be their friend or to talk to them, etc. So I'll probably talk about that later on in this live, this whole concept of people not getting invited to Thanksgiving dinner because they voted for Trump. Like, that's ridiculous. Anybody who's in a family that's doing that, your family was already fucked up before that happened. All right, so it wasn't Trump that did that. It was you already had some problems. Any family where that's happening, that's ridiculous. Y'all ain't even got to talk about politics. I don't really talk about politics with my parents. They're two, black dad, black mom, grew up Democrat their entire lives. Like, I don't talk to them about stuff like this because what's the point? They're not changing their minds. I just told you, most people don't change. My parents are in their 60s. They're not changing their minds about anything, and I'm not trying to change their minds. I'm not in the business of changing anybody's mind, and neither should you. You shouldn't be in the business of changing people's minds. You should be in the business of talking to people who are either aligned with you or they're open to changing their minds. All right. I will talk to people, and if you happen to disagree, you're welcome to engage, but I'm not trying to change your mind. If you don't want to change your mind, that's fine. We can disagree. But the point being here is that since you could take the way your parents raised you and keep some parts and throw other parts away, you can do the exact same thing with everything you ever been taught and everything you ever learned in life. All right, here's some things that make sense. Here's some things that don't make sense. Here's some things that make sense. Here's some things that don't make sense. Soul Art on Instagram said, I hope they don't disown you. Well, they don't own me now. I'm an independent adult. I don't need anything from my parents. So they disown me from what? Ain't nothing to disown me from. But anyway, what I'm saying here, folks, is you got to be willing to change your opinions. All your opinions should be flexible. I have an episode on my masterclass where I talk about this. I have a daily show. Some of you call these a podcast. Comes out every day. It was on Spotify, it's on Apple. It's called Work on Your Game. So just look that up. You see the title of that book behind me, Work on Your Game. That's the name of the show. Work on Your Game, or just type in my name, Dre Baldwin. You can find me on Spotify, Apple. It's also on YouTube. But I have an episode in that show. It's episode number 734. Keep all your opinions flexible. You should be willing to change every opinion at the drop of a hat, given new information. All right, everybody got this? So back to what I'm saying here. The cognitive dissonance that people experience, and just talking about myself. Once I started hearing other people who were supporters and like happy that Trump won in 2016, I realized, oh, there's a whole bunch of other things that people voted for when it came to Trump that had nothing to do with these negative things that I've been told. And also, people had some negative things about Clinton that I said, okay, now that makes sense. Now I understand why people supported and voted for Trump. And as I continue to learn more, and the way I started learning more was I started listening to people who I thought I was in disagreement with. I wasn't even really in disagreement with them. I just thought that they thought one way. Then when I started hearing what they actually said, I said, oh, these people think a completely different way than what I was told that they think. So this whole concept of the other. I don't know if any of you have heard of this. The other is the group that's outside of your group. So whatever group you're a part of, and any group, one way that you create cohesion in a group is you have the insiders and you have the outsiders. This is called the us versus them dynamic. And this works really well if you want to build an organization or a culture of people all together. As you got, here's what we are, and everybody who doesn't think like this, they're outside of the group. This is great for building a dynamic of a group. But this other dynamic, that the them, when it's us and them, is often people get brainwashed, for lack of a better term. Indoctrinated is a better term. Indoctrinated into believing negative things about the people outside of the group without ever examining if those things are actually true. And this is the reason why, again, most people are not critical thinkers, because you get told that everyone who's not part of our group, here are the things you should know about them. There are 5 bad things about them. But then if you actually go talk to them, you realize that those things that you were told about them are not even true. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with the guy. I forget the gentleman's name. Some of you might know his name. He's a black guy and he plays music. And he met a guy who was a member of the KKK. And hopefully I can say that word on TikTok. He's this white guy who was a supremacist. So let's just call it that. He was a supremacist. He met the guy and they vibed over music. And then when the black guy found out that the white guy was a supremacist, they started talking about that. And they became friends. And the supremacists ended up leaving that group. I don't know if I keep saying that group's name, but that group starts with the letter K. That guy left the group, and then this black guy went and converted a bunch of other supremacists to stop being supremacists because they met a black guy, and they're like, oh, black people aren't as bad as we were taught that they were. Y'all know who I'm talking about? Any of y'all know that guy? Yes, they do still exist. This was years ago that he did it, but this guy is still alive. I forget his name. Any of y'all know his name? Yes, he was on Rogan. Can somebody put his name? Somebody knows his name. He's a black guy. He's a musician. And he started basically, yes, Daryl Davis. That's his name. Mira Wonder Will, she got it. His name's Daryl Davis. And he started converting a bunch of these supremacists to stop being supremacists because the supremacists, they have been taught their entire lives, well, here's these negative things about black people. And they had never met a black person. Then when they finally met a black person and they vibed over the music, because this guy's a musician, then they realized, oh, black people aren't as bad as I thought they were. And then they stopped being supremacists. See, critical thinkers have that ability. Now, in order to get someone to start thinking critically, you got to find some common ground with them, because the common ground that this black guy found with these white guys was the music. That was the common ground. All right, this guy's good at music. All right, black people ain't that. But then they got open to the next steps. So you got to be able to open people up somehow, some way. And that's a skill. All right, not everybody has that ability, but it's a skill. I would suggest all of you develop that skill. I suggest you read the book Influence by Robert Cialdini. It'll help you with that. He is basically a kind of like a textbook when it comes to influence and persuasion through the human mind. And we got to deal with humans all of our lives. So back to what I'm saying here when it comes to cognitive dissonance and Trump derangement syndrome is that, yes, charge 6, you're right. Yes, you're right about that. And so those of y'all should be reading the book is called Influence by Robert Cialdini. Can somebody put that book in the comments there on TikTok? It's called Influence. The author's name is Cialdini, Cialdini. And the book is called Influence. He's written several books. And yeah, so some of you who live in the more rural parts of America, y'all know that group that starts with a K, they absolutely do exist. That they're not as prominent as they used to be. They don't have as many numbers as they used to have, but they absolutely exist. They do exist. They just aren't, let's just say, as welcome in the mainstream as they used to be. So they still do their thing. They just do it quietly. So anyway, back to what I was saying, cognitive dissonance. So let me give you another example. When I was a kid, my family, I have one sister, I grew up with both parents at home. We would watch TV on this little tiny TV in the kitchen every night while we ate dinner. 4 of us sitting at the dinner table. And when I was around maybe 9 or 10 years old, we watched the news often. And then we watched like the Cosby Show, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, all those shows. And the news was on, and they were talking about the Democrats and the Republicans, and they would use that term all the time. So I realized that they were 2 different groups by around age 10. And I knew that my parents, every time there was an election, they would go. There was a church across the street from where I grew up. The church would be a polling place, and they would go to the polling place and they would vote. They always voted in the election. And I didn't know who they voted for because I didn't always know the details of things. But I asked my mom this particular night, I said, Mom, what are we? Are we Democrats or Republicans? And my mom said, she immediately answered, she said, Democrats. And I said, why are we Democrats? Because I understood there were 2 groups. And hello, Nicole. Yeah, you're right about that. That's correct. And I said, well, why are we Democrats? And my mom had to think for a moment to come up with an answer. Now, I want to tell you what I think she was going to say. I'm going to tell you what she actually said. And I'm going to tell you what I think she was going to say. Her answer was because Republicans only work for the rich people. That was her answer. Now, I don't think that was the real answer. What I think her real answer was that she didn't want to say was that Republicans only work for white people. That's what I think she wanted to say, but she didn't say it. Now, the answer that she did give told me something, that we weren't rich. I already knew we weren't rich because my parents would use phrases like, if my sister or I asked for something kind of extra, they would say, well, we're not rich. Or do you think money grows on trees? Or do you have a job? Or do you have the money for that thing? You say, hey, can we get some McDonald's? My mom or my dad might say, well, do you have McDonald's money? They would say stuff like that. Or we're not rich. And these all these phrases that people say when they have poor mindsets around money. Now, again, I'm bringing up these examples to help you understand that these come from my parents. And I If you look at my sister and I, my sister's a college professor, and who I become, I think we can say that my sister and I are success stories of my parents' parenting process. At the same time, I still take a bunch of things that my parents did as parents, and I will not copy them as a parent myself. Some of the things I kept and some of the things I'm gonna throw away. Again, eat the meat, spit out the bones. And again, critical thinkers can do this. So I'm saying all that to say this. These are all, I'm giving you threads in here. I'm weaving, as Donald Trump likes to say. This is the weave. So cognitive dissonance. When Trump wins the election, now your story has to change. All right, so that's where I was. Trump wins the election. You think Trump's a bad guy. You think most people are good people and smart, and reasonable and informed. But Trump won the election, which means half the country voted for him. Now, I know in 2016 he didn't win the popular vote, but get the spirit of my point. Half the country voted for him. And now all the people who thought Trump was a terrible guy and think most people are smart, now your story got broken. All right, your story is broken. What do you do? Somebody answered. Yes, my podcast is on Spotify. It's called Work on Your Game. So what do you do? What do people do when their story gets broken? I want someone to answer that question. Put it in the comments. So if you believe Trump's a bad guy and you believe most people are smart and good people, but then he wins the election anyway, which means half the people voted for him. Now your story got broken. What do you do? What do most people do in that case? So let's see. Raxy says they make excuses. And that's true. Pretty Little Secret says they change it real fast. LOL. Yeah, right. No, they don't. User said lose faith in humanity. Yes. John Wash said start questioning themselves. I don't think most people do that. Questioning yourself is a critical thinking skill. Most people are not critical thinkers. So Vicky said cry. Mary said cry. Milkshake said pivot. I don't think so. I don't think people pivot. Usually throw a fit. Charge 6. Yes. Means they don't. Yes. So you start. James Hamilton says that's what they would say about other people. Yes. That means they don't care about racism. Lady Laura said get emotional. Mira said break down. Marsha said blame others. Tiffany said they start degrading other people. Logo Wash said they backpedal. Yeah, that's pretty much what they do. What they do is, and Mercy said you pivot to something else. Yes. What most people did in 2016 is the same thing you hear them doing now. You see them doing now. So they believe Trump's terrible. They believe most people are smart and good. And then he wins anyway, which means half the people voted for him. So your story's broken. The last thing anybody does is question themselves. Nobody questions themselves. And if you are on social media, I'm on X. That's the app where I talk about current events. If I'm not live stream, I talk about it on all of these. But when I will actually go back and forth with people who I generally disagree with on X. My name on X is Dre all day. I'm live on X right now, as a matter of fact. We'll see how many people are watching me on X. But I am on X. That's formerly known as Twitter. I think most of you know that. And that's the place where I'll engage. Let's see what we got. It says I got 24 people watching me on X right now. So shout out to those people on X watching me. When people get their stories broken, the last thing they do is say, well, maybe I just had the story wrong. Nobody says that. Said by nobody ever. Maybe I was just wrong. Nobody says maybe I was wrong. What most people do is they change up the story to make it fit what they've seen. This is what we call rationalizing. It's what you do as a result of cognitive dissonance. You come up with a story that makes your story okay. That's what rationalizing means. And if you break down rationalizing, it means rational lies. You come up with some lies that sound good so that you can feel better about yourself, because obviously you can't be the problem. Everybody else has to be the problem. So there are only two things you can change about your story, because there are three parts of the story. Number one, Trump's bad. Number two, most people are good. Number three, he can't win. Well, he won. So that part you can't change. That happened. All right. That's reality slapping you in the face. You said he can't win. He won. All right. So that part you can't change. So you only got two options. Here are the two options you got. Number one, you can change that you had the story. You thought that Trump was a bad guy. So you can change that. Maybe Trump's not a bad guy. That's one option. Here's your other option. Well, maybe all the people, the voters who I thought were smart, good, and reasonable like me, and I'm being tongue in cheek here, maybe they're not as smart or as good or as reasonable or as logical as I thought they were. Let me ask you a question. Put the number one and number two in the chat. Which one do you think most people do? I mean, y'all should all get this answer correct. You got two options. When Trump wins an election, you got two choices. Number one, I was wrong. Number two, they're wrong. One or two. Put the number one or number two in the chat. Which one is it? You could either say I had the wrong story, which is what I did in 2016, or you could say number two, All these people who voted for him, they're obviously idiots. They're obviously racist. They're obviously misogynist. They're obviously xenophobic. They're obviously not as smart as me. They're obviously not as informed as me. Obviously, they're not good people like I thought they were. They are obviously don't know what they're signing up for by voting for Trump. Which one is it? Number one or number two? What do most people do when they experience the brain breakage of Trump winning when they thought it was impossible for him to win? Everybody picks number two. Nobody picks number one. And when I say nobody, I'm being facetious here. I would say maybe 1 out of every 100 people will pick number one and say, maybe I had it wrong. Maybe he's not as bad a guy as the mainstream media told me that he is. This is all things that happened to me in 2016. Maybe he's not as bad as they say he is. Maybe the things that they're saying about him are true. However, there's more to the story. And I did a whole live on this about a month ago where I explained to you all that facts, F-A-C-T-S, facts, do not matter as much as they used to. Facts don't matter anymore. Why do facts not matter? Because facts can be pulled out of context. You can take a fact out of context. You cannot take the truth out of context. There's a difference between a fact and a truth. Okay. A fact is something you can say this absolutely happened, but you don't have to give the context around what happened. So they could be a fact. Like if I say to you, one of you here, I say you're a violent person and you say I'm not a violent person. And I say, okay, here's a guy that you got in a fight with when you were 16 years old and you beat him up. Did that happen? And you say, yes, that happened. Okay, well, that proves it. That's a fact. Is it a fact that you beat that guy up? Yes. Okay. Does that make you a violent person? No. But if we only go off the facts, this fact is proof that you're a violent person because there you are beating somebody up. So you see how a fact can make somebody look any way you want to make them look if you pull the right facts? See, this is why facts don't matter anymore because people have started to exploit facts to try to make people look different than what they actually are. This is why you got to be careful when someone gives you a quote unquote fact, because you can take a fact out of context and paint any picture that you want to paint. The thing is, you cannot do this with the truth. So you can't take the truth out of context. There's no such thing. That's an oxymoron. The truth cannot be taken out of context. A fact can and does get taken out of context. People do it all the time. You want to see facts get taken out of context, just go on the internet and look up Donald Trump. You'll see facts getting taken out of context all day, every day. So when people say, for example, in 2024, he wins the election. I see people saying this on social media all day because I follow a bunch of these people who I don't even agree with, but I follow them. They'll say stuff like I thought it was impossible that a guy who is adjudicated for assault, the S word assault that I'm not going to say on TikTok, a guy who has 34 felony convictions, 6 bankruptcies, a guy who, what's the other thing they say about him? He tried to overthrow the government. He challenged a free and fair election. I thought it was impossible for a country to vote for a guy who has all of these negative things about him. I guess I was wrong. And they're being sarcastic. See, here's the thing. All of those things about him are facts. Does he have those convictions? Yes, he does. Does he have bankruptcies? Yes, he does. Actually, they're not facts. Excuse me. Did he challenge the election? Yes, he did. Did he overthrow the government? No, he didn't try to overthrow the government. That one is not a fact. That's kind of something that they said so often that people have come to accept it. But that's not a fact. But all these other things are actual facts. He did go to court. He did get convicted. He did get found guilty of like fraud and all these things. All those things are facts. But if you remove the context, then of course somebody might come to believe that. Now let me ask you a question. Most people, do they do the research on things that they hear and find out if it's actually true or not? Or do they just accept what they're told? What do y'all think? Do most people do the research or do they accept what they're told? Most people do not do the research on anything. They hear something, and if they hear it often enough, they accept it as reality. There are 3 ways to program the subconscious mind, ladies and gentlemen. Number 1, immersion. Number 2, emotionalization. Number 3, repetition. If you hear the same thing over and over and over again, and it triggers you emotionally, and that's the only thing you're hearing everywhere you go, guess what? You got all 3. You got repetition, emotionalization, and immersion at the same time. So if you want to know why people have derangement syndrome over Donald Trump, I just told you their subconscious minds are programmed to think that he's a negative guy. They hear it over and over again. It's emotional. And it's the only thing they see. Everywhere they go, everyone they listen to is all saying the same thing. Well, if that happened to you, you might start to have different beliefs too. Every single thing you hear says the same thing from all different sources, and it pleases you emotionally. See, if you were told that Donald Trump's a racist, and then everything you hear about him is more evidence that he's racist, more quote unquote facts that he's racist, well, eventually you're going to accept Donald Trump must be racist. There's no way he can't be racist. Look at all this. I'll listen to 10 different people and they all said he's racist and they're all saying the same story. And they keep saying it every single day for the last 10 years. All right. That will program your subconscious mind. And it will be very hard to undo that programming. Why? Because most people do not think, they don't read, and they're lazy. All right, you see how these principles all connect? You see how I keep coming back to the same things over and over again? Now, while I'm on the subject, any of you who has kids and you're sending your kids to school every day, be careful. I just want to throw that out there. That's not the subject today. It will be. It will be. I'm going to do a whole live on the Department of Education. But those of you sending your kids to school every day, be careful. A public school, be careful. Because guess what? The human brain is most susceptible to programming in youth, in the young ages. Up to the age of 8, anything that the human brain is hearing over and over and over again and being immersed in, and by the way, that's what school is. You're being immersed by the messages from the teacher. You're hearing it every single day from the teacher and from your classmates. By the time a kid gets to age 8, you ain't changing that programming. Those of you sending your kids to school, be careful. Public school, be careful. I just got to throw that out there. All right, that is how the program, that's how the subconscious mind gets programmed. I heard this person, he was a religious guy. He said, if you give me a child and let me deal with that child every day up until the age of 8, I will program that kid to believe anything that you will never get out of his head for the rest of his life. And that is 100% true. That's how the subconscious mind gets programmed. And you are more susceptible to programming in your youth than you are as an adult. So if you're listening to me right now, you're 65 years old. There's not much of a chance you're going to change your mind about anything. I'm not saying you can't. Most people are not critical thinkers. I told you, my parents are in their 60s. They ain't changing their mind about nothing. So I don't try to change their minds. I let them say what they got to say. I'll say what I got to say, but I'm not trying to change their mind on any subject because they're not open to changing their minds. I can tell when someone's open to changing their mind just by listening to what they say about certain things that they have come to believe. I got beliefs too, but I'm willing to change my mind on damn near everything that I believe. Why? Because I'm a critical thinker. I got some principles that ain't changing. But as far as my opinions, I'm open to changing anything. And I just told you how I changed my own opinion about Trump and his existence as a president. I didn't think he was a horrible guy. I just thought he wasn't going to win. So I wasn't so deeply emotional about it at all. I was dispassionate about it. That's one key, by the way, to being a critical thinker is you have to be dispassionate about your opinions. Dispassionate just means you're not emotionally engaged. I'm not emotionally engaged in the outcome of any presidential election. Never have been. From Obama to Trump to Biden to now. I've never been emotionally engaged in the outcome. Therefore, I can talk about it objectively because I don't really care who wins. Now, some of you care strongly on the Trump side. Some of you care strongly on the Democrat, whoever that's going to be, Hillary, Biden, Kamala. They got worse every time. I talked about that already. But and when you're that, it's harder to be a critical thinker because emotion overpowers logic every day of the week. Emotion overpowers logic every day of the week. So let me tell you how, first of all, you got to guard yourself against this. You got to guard against this and make sure that you don't allow anyone to trigger you emotionally into believing something that doesn't logically make sense. It's called manipulation is the word, but manipulation is not necessarily a negative thing. Any of you who's in sales, sales is manipulation. So if you want to sell something to somebody, trigger them emotionally. Don't try to get them all the logical information. People don't buy because of logic. They buy because of emotion and they come up with logical justifications for that emotion. It's the exact same reason people are negative about Trump. The first thing you hit them with is the emotion. The emotion is, oh, your family is from some country outside of USA. Well, Trump hates immigrants. That's an emotional trigger. Now you can come up with a bunch of logical stuff to support that emotional trigger. That's how people think. Oh, you're black. Oh, Trump hates black people. So that's the emotional trigger. Now you can come up with a bunch of logical stuff to back up the emotional trigger. That's how you sell people on anything. You want to sell anybody anything, don't give them the quote unquote facts. Don't give them the information. Don't give them the logic. Don't give them anything reasonable or logical. If you want to sell somebody, get them emotional first, and then you give them a bunch of logic to justify the emotion. And this is how most people think that they're smart. Well, they got this belief and you're like, how do you have that belief? And then they start giving you all the facts, right? They start giving you all the logic to explain their emotion, but their real reason is emotional. It's not logical. Most human beings do not make decisions based on logic. We make decisions based on emotion. So if you're a salesperson, I'm telling you that while you got to be careful of someone using this against you, you need to use it against other people. That is the paradox of life, is that a lot of things you want to be careful of someone using it on you, but you got to use it on them. Now think about that one. And see, this is why being a critical thinker matters so much, ladies and gentlemen, because you have to understand when to use certain information and when not to use it. There's no black and white color by numbers path to quote unquote success. Certain things make sense at some points and they don't make sense at other points. My favorite book of all time is called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. If you haven't read it, you should read it. There are chapters in that book that are in conflict with other chapters in the exact same book. There are times in life when you should lay low, be quiet, and not draw any attention to yourself. And there are also times in life when you should draw all the attention and make sure everybody sees and hears everything you have to say. It's both. You got to know when to use one and when to use the other one. The challenge that many people have is that they want someone to just tell them how to be all the time, as if that will always work every time, like this one size fits all approach. It's not the way life works. Again, what did I tell you? Most people don't think, they don't read, and they're lazy. So when you tell people, well, there's no one way to always be. Sometimes you got to make noise and sometimes you got to be quiet. Most people don't want to hear that because now they got to think. Thinking is work. And this is the reason why most people don't grow, because they don't want to think. Thinking takes effort, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody follow what I'm saying here. Okay, let's continue. So I asked you all, what do you think most people do? So when Trump wins an election, let's just take 2024. Let's just take this year. He wins this election. And most people's brains got broken because they said Trump's a terrible guy. Trump is bad. All right. We already had one term of Trump in 2017 to 2020. Then he lost in 2020. And now here he is. He's going against a black, quote unquote, woman. We do know she's a woman, even though some people on the Democratic side don't even know what a woman is. Ketanji Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court, nominated by Joe Biden. We're not going to get into that today. So he's going against a black woman. All right. He already had his term. He already did all these terrible things, right? He already tried to challenge a free and fair election. He tried to overthrow the government. They said all these things about Trump, right? There's no way he can win now, right? There's no way he can win now. He wins. Now what do people do? They chose option two. Obviously, I thought, and this is what you see on social media, I see people saying these kind of things. Well, it looks like, and this is the group they're blaming, by the way, they're blaming white women. Have y'all seen this? Any white women watching me right now? Y'all the ones getting blamed for this. Y'all know that, especially those of you who are Trump supporters. Y'all the ones getting blamed for the outcome. And y'all getting blamed by, first of all, you're getting blamed by black guys. You're getting, not all black guys. Most black guys have stayed quiet, but there are a few black guys who have said this, the ones who are specifically working for the Harris campaign. Then you have a lot of black females are bashing black women. I mean, not black women, white women for supporting Trump. You got white guys for Kamala. They're trashing white women. And you got white women who were supporters of Kamala. They're trashing white women who voted for Trump. So you white women who didn't vote for Kamala, you're the ones getting bad. Y'all the ones getting the blame this time. Oh yeah, y'all got the blame in 2016 too. White women didn't step up for us. White women didn't do their jobs. White women did not vote against Trump. White women voted for their own demise. White women voted to be barefoot in the kitchen for the rest of their lives. White women voted against having control over their own bodies. Like this is what's being said. Now, I'm not saying it's true. I 100% do not agree with this. I do not believe this is true for several reasons. Number one, how somebody else votes is their choice. My vote, my choice. All right, that's how it is. So I know some of you listening to this voted for Kamala, and you voted for Biden, and you voted for Hillary. All right, cool. Your vote, your choice. I'm not trying to change your mind. Again, I want y'all to all understand, I'm not in the business of changing people's minds. I'm not trying to change your minds about anything. Oh, yeah, Hispanics too. Michael, I see you over there on, and I'll answer questions when I'm done. I see you over there on YouTube. Yeah, Hispanics are getting bashed too. People are like, well, LOL, you dumb Hispanics don't even know you voted for Trump and now he's going to kick you out of the country. All right. I don't believe that's going to happen. That's not going to happen unless you're here illegally. If you're here illegally, you should get kicked out of the country. We got laws. All right. We have laws for immigration for a reason. If you break the law, you get kicked out. Let me ask you a question. Anybody here from a different country? Anybody here not from the United States? You just live in another country without proper paperwork and nothing happens? No, they kick you out. That's how it works. Like I know people who have lived in that country. I've got to be careful saying countries' names on here because one time I said the country with the letter R in here on TikTok and they gave me a warning. Don't be saying that. So they literally gave me a warning. Like you can't be saying that. So that country right to the south of us, it starts with the letter M. I know people because I played basketball there. I know people who played ball there. They stayed longer than their visa was. And when the authorities found out, they got took to jail. Literally, they got put in jail. And then when they got out of jail, they immediately had to get on the bus and get out of the country. Every other country, they do that. They protect their borders and they enforce their laws. Now, why is our country all of a sudden just this place where everybody can just walk in? That's not a thing. Now, and listen, I ain't against immigrants. I know a whole lot of people who are not from America, but they're here legally. If you're here illegally, then something's going to happen. That's what's supposed to happen. That's called the law. And you know what they say, when there's no law, there's no order. All right, when you remove laws and you remove rules, you get chaos. That's called the law of entropy. The law of entropy states every organism is always moving into a higher state of chaos and disorder. And when you remove borders, when you remove order, when you remove parameters, you get chaos. If you want to see an example of this, ask yourself what would happen to the lawn at your house if you didn't cut the grass and you didn't pull the weeds and you didn't pick up the dog poop out of it for a month straight. What would your lawn look like? All right, you know, right? You want to see another example of it? Ask yourself, when you were in the second grade and a substitute teacher walked into the room, what did you and your classmates do that day? All right, you acted like you didn't have any sense. It was a zoo. Why? Because there were no parameters, no rules, and no order. But then the very next day when the teacher came back to school, what'd you do? Y'all were all sitting there with your hands folded and being good boys and girls. What changed? There was no order. That's the law of entropy. Anytime there's no rules, you get chaos. That's how life works. This is just human nature. So when we have no order, no rules, and we don't enforce our own rules at the border of the United States, we get chaos. We have chaos going on right now because no one's enforcing the rules. That's how it's working. And again, you could be a Democrat or Republican. Nobody can question that that's what's happening. All right, that's just an objective observation. We are getting chaos because no one's enforcing the rules. We start enforcing the rules again, then we have law and order again. And if that means it's harder for people to get into the country, so be it. All right, it should be hard to get into the country. I've asked this question before. How many of you know someone who became a naturalized citizen in the United States or is trying to? How many years did it take for them to get it? They didn't get it in 2 weeks like people are getting now. Now they go on an app and now they get legal status in like a week. You know how long it takes for people to get that paperwork, that documentation, to become a citizen in the United States when they were enforcing the rules? It takes years. I see it, 20 years, a few years, 10 years, lots of money, a lot of time. Yes. That's what book you talking about, Jim Boyd? What book are you referring to? Charles says 10 years and tens of thousands of dollars. I'm second generation, took my granddaddy 10 years. Yeah, it's crazy. That's how long it takes. Now people are getting it in like a month, a week. They have legal status. Y'all saw the women, they fact checked JD Vance during the VP said. They said, well, those people in Ohio have legal status. Yeah, because they're giving it to them. They're giving it to them as soon as they get over here. But you couldn't get that before. You had a visa. I know a girl who was from the country to the north of us, white chick. She's from there, but she came here and she overstayed her visa. And I don't know why she did this, but she stupidly went back home to that country. And then she went there like for vacation, go see her family and stuff. And when she was trying to come back, they looked at her paperwork and they said, hey, you overstayed your visa. And she got banned from the country for 10 years. She couldn't come to America for 10 years. And all her stuff was still here in Miami. And her friend had to mail all her stuff back to her in Miami. D. Aberdeen, what's going on, my man? 9 years. Yeah. So I think she just forgot. Maybe she just forgot that she was here on a visa and she wasn't supposed to be here. She wouldn't have got found out. She didn't make any noise, but she went to the country to the north, tried to come back. They looked at her paperwork and said, yo, you violated. You can't come back for 10 years. They kicked her out. Or they didn't kick her out. They said, you can't come in. Even though all her stuff was here in America, she was a law-abiding citizen, all of that stuff, because she broke the rules. That's the way it's supposed to be. And guess what? Every other country in the world, that's how it works. You can't just not have documentation, just come into a country and just do what you want and live here. They find you and they will get rid of you. That's the way it's supposed to be. So anyway, let's continue. People change their stories now. So when they experience the cognitive dissonance of Donald Trump winning, here's what we got. All right. So obviously this country is not as good of a country as I thought it was. People are not as smart as I thought they were. This is what the TDS people are saying. People are not smart. People are not good. Hispanics don't know what they voted for. White women don't know what they voted for. Black men don't know what they voted for, because the only demographic that was solidly all the way on one side was black females. Were like 97%, according to the exit polls, voting for Kamala. But black males were in the 70s, and all the other groups were at different numbers. But a lot of Hispanics voted for Trump. They were more towards Kamala, but it was not as much. It wasn't as heavy towards the Kamala side as people, I guess, wanted it to be. And people are looking for explanations. And this is what happens in life. Anytime you expect something to happen and you're pretty sure it's going to happen, then it doesn't happen. You can either say, I had the wrong plan from the beginning, the wrong idea from the beginning. That requires self-reflection and looking in the mirror and self-introspection and critical thinking. Most people are not willing to do any of those things. And instead, you can just flip the story and say, well, it must mean the rest of the world is wrong. I can't be wrong. The rest of the world has to be wrong. No way I'm wrong. The rest of the world has to be wrong. There's no way Donald Trump won. We got to recount the ballots. Oh, yeah? I thought we weren't supposed to question the free and fair election. Kamala Harris supporters. I thought we weren't supposed to do that. I thought we were supposed to have a peaceful transfer of power when you lose. I thought this was supposed to happen. I thought questioning an election made you an insurrectionist and a bad person. Oh, but now people want to recount the ballots. Interesting. Interesting how quickly that story changes. Or, oh, these people are just bad people. All right, these people are just stupid people. All right, they just don't know what they voted for. Yet people know exactly what they voted for. They heard everything Kamala said. They heard everything Trump said. They heard everything the media said about both of them. And people made their decision anyway. So what most people are not willing to do is question themselves. Look in the mirror. I gave a speech earlier this week to a sales organization, corporate sales organization. And one of the things I explained to them, the same thing I'll tell you all. I tell my audience this all the time, that followers have the luxury of looking out the window. What do you see me look out the window? I'm looking out the window right now. I see cars. I see people walking around. I see buildings. I see trees. I see birds. I see everything that's outside of myself, things that I don't have control over. Leaders, on the other hand, have to look in the mirror. Leaders have to look in the mirror. What do you see me look in the mirror? All right, this is not a trick question. You see yourself. You look in the mirror, you see yourself. Leaders have to look at themselves and ask themselves, what did I do? What did I not know? What did I not see? What did I pretend to not notice that led me to being in this position that I didn't think I would end up in? What did I do? What did I not do? Where did I mess up? Leaders put everything on their shoulders. We call this full accountability. Extreme accountability means you take ownership of everything, even if it's not your fault, it's your responsibility. And this starts with the way that you think. So in 2016, when Trump won that election, I thought there was no way he could win, and he won. First thing I had to do was look in the mirror and say, okay, where was I? Where did I get fooled here? Because there's no way half the country believes that he's a terrible guy and voted for him anyway. Well, obviously the story was wrong. I had the wrong story. I had been fed a false story by the mainstream media. And that's when I really stopped paying attention to the mainstream media at all, except to ridicule them and point out the nonsense that they were pushing on people. In 2016, that's when I took what you all call the red pill. Now, if you're familiar with the Matrix, take the red pill, or you can take the blue pill and keep believing everything you want to believe. You can take the red pill and you're going to get smacked in the face with reality. Which one you want, the red pill or the blue pill? I took the red pill in 2016. And taking the red pill requires looking in the mirror, because when you take the red pill, what's going to happen is you're going to realize that some things that you believed about your own life and about yourself are simply not true. And the discomfort that comes with dealing with that reality, slapping you in the face, is called cognitive dissonance. That's what it is. The discomfort of realizing that what you thought was true is not true. That's called cognitive dissonance. And when it comes to Donald Trump, it's called Trump derangement syndrome. Everybody understand this? Most human beings do not want to deal with that discomfort. Most people run from discomfort. Anything that sounds like it might be uncomfortable, they don't do it. And guess what? Thinking is uncomfortable. Most people do not think. Thinking is uncomfortable. Thinking takes effort. Effort is uncomfortable. So when I tell you that you don't have to go look up your high school classmates on Facebook because they're the same people that they were the last time you saw them, they just got older, fatter, and uglier. This is what I mean. They ain't doing anything different. Now, there may be some exceptions. I think I got better since high school, but most people do not get better. Most people don't grow. They're the same people. They're the same people. They just get older. That's it. And they have kids, and they teach their kids to be just like them. So this is how it perpetuates. This is a perpetuating cycle. Most people do not challenge anything they've ever been told, heard, or forced to believe because they're emotionally engaged. They connect their ego to their emotions, and therefore their logic can never get a word in. Emotions are 10 times stronger than logic. So if you ever want to change somebody's mind, don't come at them with a whole bunch of logic. Don't send them a link to an article. Don't send them a book to read. It's going to be a completely useless waste of time. I'll give you another example. My mother works in a public school system, or she's going to retire soon, but she's been in a public school system. And I read this book by Thomas Sowell. It's called Charter Schools and Their Enemies. And this book explains how charter schools have proven to be better than public schools, and private schools are even better than that. And I remember I was talking to my mom once, this is years ago, and she was basically venting, complaining about how she didn't like the system and where she was working. She's worked in the public school system. And I asked her, well, why don't you go work in a private school? Because private schools tend to have more money. She has more freedom to kind of do what she wants to do. And her challenge to that was, well, private schools don't give you you don't have like a guarantee. So you work in the public school system in America, you get with the teachers union, which is a very strong union. They have a lot of sway and a lot of control. The teachers union, you basically have a guaranteed contract. You know you're going to make a certain amount of money, and you know it's going to keep coming for a certain amount of time. You go in the private school space, you don't have that guaranteed contract. Even though you can make more money, there's no guarantee you're going to have a contract the next year, the next year, the next year. My mom is actually a very good teacher. Now, you want to know how I developed my skill of reading, writing, and articulating? It ain't all from her, but she set the foundation. All right, I told you, my sister's a college professor. So my mom did a damn good job. So she could go into that space, but I don't think she has the stomach to do it. And when I mean the stomach, what I mean is because going to the private school space is kind of like being an entrepreneur instead of having a job. Like you ain't guaranteed, that contract ain't guaranteed. Now you might go year to year not knowing where your next job is going to be. But anyway, I sent her this book by Thomas Sowell called Charter Schools and Their Enemies. And she read it, but she didn't really have anything to say about it because it bashed the public school system. And I only sent it to her because she's my mom. If she was a friend, I wouldn't send her that book because the book basically challenged her beliefs. And I usually don't send stuff to people that's going to challenge their beliefs because I don't find most people are open to having their beliefs challenged. So I don't waste my time. I usually, if I send somebody a book, like if you're one of my coaching members, I'll send you books. But the books are usually going along the lines of what we've already talked about and something that can help you basically in the direction that you're already going. I'm not going to send you a book that's going to slap you in the face with reality because most people don't want to be slapped in the face with reality. Most people don't like the feeling of getting slapped in the face with reality. And this is why most people don't change. All right, everybody got this? How many times I got to say this? Okay. I sent my mom another book. My mom happens to have a generally weak immune system. Every time she gets sick, she's sick like way longer than most people. I sent her this book called Good Energy by Casey Means. Has any of you read that book? It's called Good Energy, and it's by Casey Means, CASEYMEANS. If anybody can put that book title in the comments. I mentioned it last week as well. And I sent that to her because Casey Means, she's been on the Rogan show and done a lot of press. She was on Megyn Kelly a couple weeks ago as well. She talks about how the system of food and stuff, and we know that Trump just noted that he's going to bring in Robert Kennedy Jr. to be in charge of, what was it? The health, something health. I can't remember the exact. I think it's HHS, whatever that stands for. But I'm going to answer questions and comments in a moment, everybody who's leaving comments. That book is all about understanding the system of food in the United States, which is a very corrupt system. The food system here is extremely corrupt. There are a bunch of chemicals and stuff in the food that makes us addicted to it that in other countries, you can't even put this stuff in food. The stuff that companies get away with selling to us in America, there's no other country in the world that they could sell the same things composed the exact same way without the governmental system saying, no, you can't sell that. You can't put that in food. Here we can do it because it's all about money. This is one of the trade-offs of a capitalistic society. In other countries, not all about money. And that's the reason why you can't get away with it. But in that book, she talks about these things, the kind of stuff you should put. Yes, health and human services. There it is. Thank you. So those things. And in that book, she just also talks about just the way you can eat and the things you should stay away from, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it would help my mom if she reads the book and takes heed to it. But again, she's in her 60s. I don't think she's open to changing her mind, but I can live with it all. I can't live with it on my conscience that I didn't try. Only because of my mom. Now, if it was one of y'all that ain't related to me, I'll let you keep believing what you want to believe. All right. And whatever happens to you, happens to you. All right. I ain't taking no responsibility for that. Won't be on my conscience. But for my own parents, I will put it on my conscience. So all that said, let's continue. So most people don't change because, again, that would require you challenging your own intelligence. Most people have a overestimation of their own intelligence and their own intellect and how smart they actually are and how good of a person they are. So challenging that and asking yourself, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. Most people do not want to play that game. Most people don't want to go on that ride. That's why most people don't change. So what most people do is they change belief number 2 and they start bashing everybody else. It must mean the rest of the world is stupid because no way I'm not smart. That's option number 2. The rest of the world must be stupid because there's no way that I'm not the smartest person in the room. That's how most people think. They don't say this out loud, but this is, if you listen to most people talk, especially on a subject in which they are highly emotional and they are experiencing cognitive dissonance, they change the story to be everybody else must be wrong because there's no way that I'm not right. That's what you see now. Look on social media, you'll see this. Every app that I'm on, 7 different apps right now: YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. Look around on here about anybody talking about the election. Half of them are going to say positive things about Trump, and half of them are going to be experiencing cognitive dissonance. You're going to hear them saying things like this. Everybody else is horrible, stupid, racist, sexist, voted for their own demise. They don't know what they're doing. They're idiots. They're not as smart as me. Yeah, it's my son in there crying. Y'all can hear that. Yeah. Or somehow there are a few people who are holding on to the idea that he didn't win. I think that one's pretty much done. He won. So this is also why, and we saw this on social, that Trump went to DC and met with Joe Biden, current President Joe Biden. And Joe Biden seemed pretty cordial and jovial hanging around Donald Trump and Joe Biden's wife as well. And why is this? I said this yesterday. Joe Biden ain't mad at Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't beat Joe Biden. Joe Biden and Donald Trump went against each other one time, and history will say Joe Biden beat Donald Trump. So what Joe Biden got to be mad at? At least with regards to Donald Trump, Joe Biden has no reason to be mad. Now, who Joe Biden is real, and actually Joe Biden is the one, his Department of Justice is the one that's been sending Trump to court all year. So what he got to be mad at? Now, he got beat by Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris and Barack Obama. They're the ones who Joe Biden got a problem with, and not Donald Trump. What he got beef with Donald Trump for? They ain't got no problems. So anyway, this is the last point, and then I'll recap and we'll take questions. What very people do is reassess their beliefs and question whether they had everything right from the beginning. I would suggest all of you as critical thinkers, or those of you who are critical thinkers in training, this is what I suggest that you do. Let me say it again. Reassess your beliefs and question whether you had the story right from the beginning. Maybe you just got told the wrong story by people who you know, like, and trust, and you accepted it because of your relationship, but they had bad information. Is it possible that someone in your family just has bad information? It's possible that your teachers told you something that's simply not true. Yes. Okay, I told you. I asked my mom, why are we Democrats? She said, because they only work for the rich people. I said, okay, well, that means one of two things. Number one, let me get rich. I'd rather be rich than poor. All right. If the Republicans work for the rich people, okay, well, let me become rich and become a Republican. If that's the case. And number two, I don't think that was the reason. I think she was saying that because it sounded good. I think the real reason is because she had been taught from a child that the Democrats are the party of black people. She didn't want to say that because she didn't want to poison my mind thinking in racial terms. And I appreciate her for that. But I don't think that was her real reason. I think she gave a good reason, not the real reason. You got to be willing to challenge every belief that you have, folks. You need to go back through your life and ask yourself, what have I been told, by whom, and why did I accept it? Is this actually true? Start with your parents, because they're the people who raise you, or whoever raised you. Start with your parents, then go to your siblings, then go to your friends, then go to, if you're religious, whatever they taught you, and then go to your schooling, if you went to school. And you can just start with those five right there. You go to those five right there, I guarantee you're going to be taking a very healthy red pill. If you just start challenging everything you were told by those people. Actually, if you just think about your own life right now, you'll probably come up with a list of things. If you just wrote it down, I guarantee this will help you. It'll be therapeutic for a lot of you. Just start writing down a bunch of things that you know now as an adult that when you were a kid, you were taught almost the exact opposite. Guarantee you're going to come up with some things. You're like, damn, I believed all these things when I was a kid, but I know that they're not true now. So again, your parents, your siblings, your friends, your any kind of community event activity you did, like religion and school. If you just do those five things, I guarantee you just go through those five. What are things that people told me here and they really, really believed it, and I accepted it because of my relationship, but it turns out it was nonsense. Guarantee you'll come up with a bunch. Let me recap and let's do comments. So Trump derangement syndrome. Number one is actually cognitive dissonance, which I've explained to you, is when reality conflicts with your beliefs. Number two, the beliefs you got to have in place in order to believe Trump, to have Trump derangement syndrome. Number one, Trump's a terrible person. Number two, most people are good and smart people. Number three, because of number one and number two, there's no way he can win. So when he wins, your equation got broken. Now you got to change the story because reality has altered the lab test. Most people will never change belief number one because belief number one is tied to your ego, because it's tied to your intellect. Most people think that they're smarter than they actually are. So when reality slaps your intellect in the face, most people do not say, maybe I'm just not that smart. Maybe I had the wrong idea. Instead, they default to number two, which is maybe the world is wrong. Maybe everybody else is wrong. Everybody else has to adjust to me rather than me adjusting to life. There are times it makes sense to make life adjust to you, but there are times it makes sense for you to adjust to life. Most people do not have the emotional capacity to accept that maybe they're not as smart as they thought they were. This is the reason why most people come up short. Christy, thank you for the rose over there on TikTok. Or some people may say he didn't actually win. I think most people are letting that one go because, again, we're not supposed to challenge free and fair elections, right? Isn't that the rule here in America? What very few people do is reassess their beliefs and question whether they had everything right from the beginning. Because again, that would mean taking a red pill. Most people ain't willing to take the red pill because it's too hard to swallow. All right. All that said, let's go through comments. So we got some good comment activity on YouTube. So I'm gonna do YouTube, then I'm gonna go through what I got over here on this lens. Then I'm gonna go to Instagram. Then I'm gonna come to TikTok. All right. So let me go through these comments on YouTube. And Zeppelin says, "What I think about Trump's appointment, I'm thinking too much Zion. I don't know. I haven't looked deeply into each person yet. Most of them, I don't know too much about them. Heard their names. I don't know too much about most of them. I know about RFK. I know about Vivek Ramaswamy, but they're all nominations too. We got to make sure they all actually get in. They had to be confirmed first. So Trump is just kind of just keeping the momentum going right now because he can't even start doing stuff till January. So we're still 2 months away from him being able to actually do anything." O-Dog says, "It takes humility, self-awareness, and security to think critically." That's right. I'm a Bible believer. That's actually helped me understand the Bible. Accepting anything without thinking is foolish. That's correct. O-Dog, you got it right. Yeah, Michael said Hispanics are getting blamed for not voting for Kamala. That's true. Yes, Hispanics are getting blamed. You're right about that. Down here in Miami, actually, in the 2020 election, Miami was blue, I believe. I know it was in 2016, meaning just Miami-Dade County voted Democrat. But in the last election, 2024, Miami was red. Miami voted for Trump. So that surprised me. I didn't think that was going to happen, but Miami voted for Trump. So Florida was they call it a swing state, but it wasn't that close. Florida, Trump pretty much dominated. So American Man says, "Good to hear the black man that has sense like myself." Well, thank you. I appreciate that. IB Hendrickson says, "These TikTok meltdowns were fun to watch." Those TikTok meltdowns, like from people on TikTok. Yeah, TikTok is a popular app. Shout out to TikTok. American Man said, "Black leader want a leader to tell them how to think." Right. Tiger said, "This ain't emotion. This is logic, Dre. People will suffer because you didn't like the fact that you agree with other people who you didn't like." Well, yeah, it's not even so much about agreeing with them. It's just about understanding more than one perspective. That's really what it's about, Tyler. I get the direction that you're going in, but it's not even so much I came to agree with, let's say, a Trump supporter or a Kamala supporter. It's just about understanding every side, because I could keep the same opinion, but you need to understand what the other side actually believes rather than just demonizing them without understanding what they believe. I posted about that on Instagram this morning. So any of you who's upset about what happened in this election, I suggest you get online and start following people who are happy and find out what they really believe as opposed to what you think they believe. And American Man said, "The insanity is people are not willing to educate themselves." Well, see, the challenge, American Man, with that phrase, educate yourself, is that everybody disagrees as to what that actually means. Everybody's disagreeing as to what educating yourself actually means. Most people, when they use the phrase educate yourself, what it means is you need to go get the same information that I have and come to the same conclusion that I came to. That's not really what education is. I get what you're saying, American Man, but that's how most people look at it. Educate yourself means a different thing to everybody these days. And I'll tell you what educate yourself does not mean. It doesn't mean go to school. All right, damn sure don't mean that. American Man said Joe seemed excited to meet the H word. I can't say that. I don't think I can say that word on TikTok. So I see what you're saying. That H guy who's from that country that starts with a G, who did all those bad things to the J's back in the day. That guy, I'm not going to say that name. Tim said 80% of public support on both of those issues. Are they doing it or not? Which issue are you talking about? Tim said, "What the hell did Trump have to offer you people anyway?" I don't know what you're referring to, Tim. I need a little bit more context to your comment. Michael said a lot of Hispanics love Trump now. Yeah, back in 2020, the 2020 election, the Hispanics had this motorcade that they did right through the middle of Miami, and I saw it. I went to go get some Chipotle, and I was about to go home, and I saw all these cars, and I went up there to see it. This is the main street in Miami, in the downtown area of Miami, and there was all these cars, and they were all Hispanic people, Cubans, and they had the Trump flags and everything. It was a long strip that they had in the 2020 election, and you could tell Miami was possibly starting to turn. You can't go off of that, but yes, I've seen that. Michael said Miami did vote for. Yeah, they did. Miami did vote for Trump. Yes, they did. Not going to trip again says fresh tie. Happy Friday from North Philly. Shout out to North Philly. Philly's my hometown, by the way. I live in Miami, but I'm from Philly. Tim said, "Why do you love Trump, though?" No one answers that question. Well, that's a straw man question, Tim. I see what you're trying to do there, but you can't use that on me. I never said that I love Trump. So your question is a false one. Nice try, though. O-Dog says, "Sometimes people aren't necessarily voting for something, but more so voting against something else." That's also true. Correct. Michael said, "From New York." Shout out to New York. I know I got a lot of New Yorkers in here. Let's see what we got over on. I like New York, but only in the summertime. I don't like New York in the winter. New York in the winter is not for me. Let's see what we got. All right, Instagram and then TikTok. I don't think I have a lot of comments on Instagram today. I see people in here on Instagram, but I don't see a lot of comments. Soul Art New York, what's going on? Good morning. D Mercy. Well, yeah, people pivot to changing the story. That's what they do. They change the story so they don't have to question themselves. So R said, I need to read that book because my son is in a charter school pre-K and I'm still nervous. Yes, it's called Thomas Sowell. The book is called Charter Schools and Their Enemies. Sowell is his last name, Sowell. Mystical Stab Artist said, you skipped me. Got to find the 3 dots. Do not recommend channel. LOL. All right, Mystical Stab Artist. Now I found you. You got your attention. All right, let me see what we got on TikTok. If you got a question or comment on TikTok, go ahead and post it. Let's see. Doll said, read this. Trump won election, best elect. Well, he didn't win. I think we can agree with that. Charles said, Extreme Ownership by Jocko. Yes, a good book. I read that book. Half of America is grieving. Trump didn't win his classic denial. Yes, well, most people are not saying that. Most people are just saying, well, because he won, people are just stupid. That's what most people are saying. People are just saying he's dumb. Not he's dumb, but voters are dumb for selecting him. A lot of people have been programmed to believe they're blue pill BS. Yes, well, that's the whole point. That's the programming, and the blue pill is the same thing. And that's what the mainstream media has done. But the reason why things are changing in the world that we live in now is because most of us understand that we have many more options besides just listening to the mainstream. And I mentioned this yesterday, but the guy who lives over in that other country that starts with the R, not the one that's in a conflict right now, but the other country starts with an R. He's bald headed. His initials are AT. That guy who used to be a kickboxer who's banned on all these apps. That guy. And I know I can't say his name because I said his name once and they took my video down off this app, off TikTok. I'm talking this app, the one I'm looking at right now. He put out a video where he was explaining how, and he's not the first one to say this. I've said it myself, but he said it as well, which reinforced the idea to me because I said it a while ago, that back in the days, those of you who are over the age of 30, let's say, back in the day, to get information, you had like 4 or 5 channels, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, CNN, PBS maybe, and they could all coordinate and give you the same information. And if you wanted to get any different information, you had nowhere to get it from. All your information was coming from like 4 or 5 sources. Nowadays, your information comes from 4 or 5,000 sources. There are 5,000 people out here putting information out there, and they could all be different. And the reason why that is significant is because nowadays you don't have the ability the same way to get all the masses of people coordinated, believing the same thing, because we all have different options as to where we get our info from. Back then, you only had a few options. So if the 3 major networks said, hey, here's the story we're going to put out, no one had a way of getting any other story. You didn't have any other way. Nowadays, we got so many options that you can't do that to people. And the mainstream media is experiencing cognitive dissonance because they could adjust themselves, but they're not adjusting themselves. They're just tripling down on doing the same thing. And this is why you heard Jen Psaki, who used to be the press secretary for Biden, say, well, we got to crack down on these podcasts and these social media people who are putting out misinformation. That's nonsense. It's the mainstream media is putting out misinformation. The podcasts and the social media folks, people like me, we are the ones that helping people get the red pill. So again, what she said is an example of them tripling down on let's do more of the same thing so we can block them from getting new information. This is what people do when they're in the last stages of demise, is denial. Let's just act like it's not happening. And then let's try to tamp down everything that everybody else is doing. Dystopian said, being red pill isn't about truth. It's about what you perceive as true. I agree with that. That's a fair enough point. I agree with that one. Joe said, you're a dreaming dude. I don't know if you're talking to me or you're talking to somebody else. Judy Mitchell said, 2016 is when it happened to me. Yes. Joe Jock, Mom the Dude, said, minority voters for Trump are the bomb. I can't say that word. We're all brothers and sisters. Okay, fair enough. Victoria said, I have learned nothing that I've learned is true. All right, nothing? Maybe 90% of it. Freeman said, Trump 101 college level. I don't know what you're referring to. Andrew Robinson says, so the insurrection didn't happen. Well, what do you consider to be an insurrection? I don't think you can take over the United States government with no tanks and no weapons with maybe, 200 people? I don't think that's possible. So no, that is not an insurrection. I don't even call it an insurrection. So your question is actually a false one. Straw man question. Because for me to even answer that question, as I just did, that we would have to accept your premise, and I'm rejecting your premise. Trump nominated Gatz. Let's look at that. What about it? I don't know enough about Gatz to really offer anything on him yet. And we got to see, first he got to actually get in it. He got to get in it because those are just nominations. He might not get in. Thank you, Jock, Mom, the dude. Thank you. Let's see. I'm looking through comments on TikTok. So you got a comment on TikTok posted. Trinidadian Queen said most will run if they have to squirm at all, level up. No friends that aren't up. Okay, good idea. Little Miss Precocious said, I see you on a panel with Owens and Kirk. That'd be cool. I don't know Kirk's work as well. I do know Candace Owens' work. Shout out to Candace Owens. I like her work. Jock said the black celebrity loved Trump until he ran Republican. Yes, that's true. We do know that that's the case. Should be interesting when only people with money get educated. Well, what do you consider education to be? Skull Father 69? If you're referring to college is not education. It's indoctrination. The American education system is about indoctrination, not about education. Victoria Lynn said the school system is very Democrat. Yeah, okay, you call it Democrat. I just call it trash. I don't care what side it's on. If it was Republican, it'd still be trash. Bingy says Trump is a narcissist, but lots of leaders and overachievers are narcissistic. He's also an enigma. All right, I agree with that point. Yes, to be a leader and to be as known as he is, you must be a narcissist. Jeff Bezos is a narcissist. Oprah Winfrey's a narcissist. Kamala is. Joe Biden is. Barack Obama is. Anyone to get to that level of notoriety, you must be narcissistic. So I agree with that point. BSJD says it's a clip-on tie. No, can't you see the knot? All right. At least you got me to read your comment. All right. Let's see. I'm going through. Jeannie Johnson says open-minded equals eager to learn. Yes, that's right. Jessica says send me one. Send you one what? Registered Navy veteran says it's good to be challenged even if I don't agree with the conclusions. That's correct. That's right. Also, Barbara O'Neill. I don't know who Barbara O'Neill is. Health and Human Services. Okay. Someone said can't wait. Robert F. Kennedy. Yeah, a lot of people are. That's another thing about RFK. People are either really excited or really angry that he got nominated. So Obingi said Trump is colorblind racially, but believes in stereotype, often lack rigorous analytical thinking. Well, I don't know. It's hard to make that assessment from the outside looking in to say what another person believes in. It's hard to tell what another person believes in. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I know. Victoria Lynn, you're right about that. And RFK says he's going to fight it. We'll see. They only got 4 years. It takes a long time. Any of you have any experience working with bureaucracies? And the government's the biggest bureaucracy there is. Things move slowly over there. So we'll see what they're able to actually accomplish. We hear what they're saying. Let's see what they actually do. Two Gurus said people need to understand blue light affecting our health. Yes. So when I go to sleep at night, I put my phone on a red light so that I don't have that blue light hitting my face, even if I'm not looking at the phone. Texas Rob says we got to make America healthy again. Yes. Charles says a lot of diabetics in this country. Yes, that's because of the garbage that we eat. Dr. Sabi. Yeah, Dr. Sabi, RIP Dr. Sabi. Trump is not always eloquent when speaking, but he's not prejudiced. Do your research. Well, the challenge, Jock, Mom, the dude, is that everybody does different research. So we got to be careful telling people to do their research and get educated because it doesn't mean they're going to get the same information that you got. Victoria said, I'm your parents' age. We can change. Yes, you can. But my point was most people don't. That's my point. Most people don't change. You are right that you can, but most people don't. And you probably know a bunch of people your age who don't change, right? God's Angel says, my reality of employment, discrimination, teaching a segregated class, breach of contract, fraud. What were you referring to? Tiffany said, what's that book again? Which one? I think I was talking about Good Energy by Casey Means. Danny Jones has a podcast, 2 doctors talking about blue light and obesity. All right, cool. Jay Vincent says, did I just hear a confession? Confession about what? Charge said, I like your suit. Thank you. Me too. Victoria, yes, that's a principle. That's not an opinion, that's a principle. Tired Navy veteran said, my best friend is a polar opposite of me and we're always challenging each other. Is great. Well, I'm glad you found that person who you can challenge. Most people don't want to be intellectually challenged. Charles said, healthy baby. Yes, he is healthy. I've heard both sides as well. Blows my mind what people say. Yes, well, the better you understand why they're saying it, then it makes more sense. It'll stop blowing your mind. I bet Biden voted for Trump. LOL. He might have. That'd be funny. It'd be funny if he came out and admitted it. That would be funny. He probably had to wait till his administration's over first, though. Charles said, $1 billion spent on telling the country how terrible Trump is. Yeah, Kamala spent a lot of money. No, they gave $10 million to Beyonce. Jock says, sorry, I'm not rich. Yeah, that's why I said it was a good reason, not the real reason, because it's not even true. Not every Republican is rich, because it ain't enough rich people to win an election. Red Horse said, you can blame LBJ. Yes. My parents are 60, so they're right about the age when he started putting that stuff out there. You're correct. Charles said, just this election cycle. Well, the next cycle is going to be different because Trump won't be around. So I think the energy of all this engagement will die down when Trump's no longer a candidate. He brings a certain amount of attention that no other candidate does. Maybe Obama on a positive side. Trump brought he got a lot of people to engage in a negative way. I don't think he's negative, but he got a lot of people to engage in a negative way. DAW. Yeah, well, they're still doing it. They're still deceiving Americans. Jeannie, what's going on? Yes, Christy, you're right. Morals, yes. So when you say morals, what I say principles. We're talking about the same thing. Jock said teachers didn't discuss politics back in the day. No, they did not. And they didn't talk about their personal lives either. Nowadays, they're doing all of that. Janine says, question everything. Yes, that's right. Critical thinkers question everything except nothing on the surface. Retired Navy vet said, my dad always told me to make my own decisions. Yeah, I think every parent says that, but they don't teach their kids how to actually do it. So Victoria Lynn, last 8 years have been an eye-opener. Yes, they have. Malik, what's going on over there on TikTok? Wayne said, did you research what you're talking about? Because you sound like a fast talker. Well, I don't know what you mean by a fast talker. Like I actually talk fast, or are you meaning that in a different way? And the things that I said, I didn't give you anything that I'm saying as quote unquote information. I'm giving you a explanation is what I'm giving you. So what do I need to research? Kind of stuff that I talk about is not research based. It's an explanation. It's taking things that we all see and I'm explaining to you why it's happening. So a friend of mine years ago, she called that social commentary. That's really what I do. It's social commentary. When I'm doing these lives, what I'm doing is social commentary. It's not really information based. It's not like I'm giving you textbook information. That's not my thing. So I don't need to research anything. Did I say something that needs research? Did I get any information wrong? Charles said we made cognitive dissonance in an American way. Yes, we did. Santa, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy. Yeah, well, those are for kids. Now, if you're over the age of 18, then it becomes a problem. Now, a 6-year-old, that's fine. Christy Coop, thank you for the rose on TikTok. Thank you everybody who sent me gifts here or whatever they call these things. What do they call this stuff on TikTok where you get the roses and the medals? What are these things called? Thank you for everybody who's been sending it. I've seen some of you doing that. Deprogramming myself for years, Trinidadian. Yes. Black Panther, what's going on? Dems, challenge yourself, go research, or are you too scared? Well, here's the challenge, Jock. You can't tell people to go do research. Because first of all, doing research is work. And secondly, you don't know what they're going to research. So you might be actually sending them even deeper to believe what they already believe. Charles said, most people think red pill means Republican. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means you open your eyes to what's actually happening as opposed to what you think is happening. Toot Scott said, lack of education is the reason he won, nothing to do with good or bad. Well, Toot Scott, what do you mean by education? Define education. And many people have different definitions of what the word education means. And so that's where a lot of people did go to that. That's option number 2. When experiencing cognitive dissonance is that people are just not educated enough. Usually when people say educated, that means they don't have the same information that I have or they're not as smart as me. So Toot Scott, I'm challenging you. What do you mean by that when you say education? Little Miss Precosta said, I'd love to see you on a panel with Owens and Kirk. Definitely going to follow on Spotify. Well, thank you. I live in Florida. My vote wasn't even counted. I think your vote probably was counted. How do you know? Do you know how slowly the government moves? So the election was like 10 days ago? All right, you think the government is going to update everything in 10 days? I don't think so. Do you have any experience with the government? They move extremely slowly. I just told you, bureaucracies are slow. So anybody think their vote isn't counted because they didn't update the website or no? The government is just slow. All right. Laney Love said, neither was my doors. I don't know what you referred to there. Let's see. German Shepherd Mom. Thank you. User says, I agree with you. Our parents don't know why they were Democrats. No, they don't know why. I agree with that. Angie said, educate should mean following actual facts. No, Angie, I disagree with that because a fact can be pulled out of context. So following facts does not make you educated because you and I could both have a bunch of facts, and those facts are in conflict with each other. So which one of us is educated, me or you? The truth cannot be taken out of context. Facts can be easily taken out of context. Listen to all the negative things said about Donald Trump. Many of them are facts, but they're out of context facts. Tech Pod said, can I talk about the elector scheme? I don't know about that scheme, so no, I can't talk about it. Let's see. Someone said, woo, Trump. I'm going to take a few more comments, then we'll wrap this up. Obama disappointed majorly. Well, I think he did what he thought he wanted to do. It didn't work, but I think he did what he wanted to do. Nice Old Lady said, don't trust rhinos. Red Horse said, just bought your Audible book. Looking forward to listening. Thank you. Which book did you get? I got 35 books. I don't know which one you got. Jock said, sounds like a critical thinking person. Thank you. I agree. Christy said, can you tell me about Work on Your Game? His name, Work on Your Game. That's the name of my company. What about it? You can go to my bio on TikTok and you can learn more about it there too as well. R. Gabber said, most people vote based on the economy. I've heard that. MC123 said, education isn't intellect or intelligence. I agree with that. Generally, I agree with that. Christy said, where's the best place to research employment law? In a law office. Go talk to a lawyer. That's the best place to research it. Or you could just read the laws that are on the books, but that'd probably take you a long time. Those laws are very detailed and they're written by lawyers. Wes says, what do you do? Well, right now I'm doing this. What I do is I work with professionals, entrepreneurs, and sales teams, and those and subcategories of those on their performance, their consistency, and producing results based on a 4-part framework of mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability. Wes Woodson, hopefully that answers your question. German Shepherd Mom, thank you. Angie said, I'm talking about facts concerning money trails, etc. Well, even that you got to put into context. Facts is not at the top of the food chain anymore. It used to be, but it's not anymore. These days, truth is at the top of the food chain because truth requires every fact being put into proper context. You can very easily deceive a person by giving them facts. The facts and the truth are not the same thing. Jock says, how do you get Dems to read if not telling them to research or educate themselves where to find truth? Well, again, research and education are subjective terms. Jock, mom, the dude, they are subjective. So when you tell someone to go do their research, that doesn't mean that they're going to get the same information that you have. So that's why those terms are tricky these days. They didn't used to be that way. It's that way now. Telling someone to go do their research will usually send them to go think more of what they already think and believe more of what they already believe. You got to get to the truth, not the facts, the truth. Many of you have this habitual idea of telling people to get facts. No, it's not facts. It's the truth. Truth cannot be taken out of context. Facts can be taken out of context. Be careful using that word fact. Milkshake, get your facts straight. See, no, exactly. Retire said, my college degree didn't make me educated. Asking questions and finding answers has done more for me. That's correct. Education means to bring out from within. The etymology of the word education is to bring out from within. That means the root of the word, where it actually came from. It comes from a Latin word. Scrappers Alley said, do you think additional facts equals additional context? Yes. And the full context is called the truth. All right. So when someone comes to me telling me they have facts, I already know what they're doing. I already know they're probably going to try to deceive me and get me to think what they think. I will ask someone, don't give me the facts, give me the truth. All right. Any of you ever seen somebody in court when they take the stand and they put their hand on the Bible? What do they say? What does the bailiff say to them? Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You've never seen anyone in court say, I promise to give you the facts. You never hear anyone in court say, I'm going to give you my truth. It's the truth. That's all that matters. The truth, not the facts, not the information, not the research, not your truth, the truth. That's the only thing that matters is the truth, not facts. Many of you need to extinguish this word facts from your vocabulary. Stop using it. I was told as a teenager that you start as a Democrat but end up a Republican. Maybe that is how it goes. Red Horse says, work on your game. Yeah, that's the name of my book. It's also the name of my company. So what's your question about it? Let's see. Christy, did you get what you were looking for? Trinidad, so going on Audible to get one of your books today. Which one do you suggest first? Depends on what you're working on. If you want something for your mindset, I would suggest my book, The Third Day. I'll give you a copy for free. Just go to thirddaybook.com. You get a better deal if you go to one of my websites than going on Audible or Amazon. But I know many of you default to those places. I would suggest you start with The Third Day, or you can get my book, Work on Your Game, which you can see right here. But I got 35 books. I suggest just pick one, read it, and when you like it, not if you like it, but when you like it, just go buy another one. Just get all of them. Just buy every book I got. That's what I would suggest you do. That's the better answer. So your question, Trinidadian Queen, which one should you get first? I say don't get one, get all of them. Get 20 of my books. That's what I suggest you do, Trinidadian Queen. All right. Nuts says, you never say anything of substance. It's all just generalizations and deflections. I disagree. I disagree. I've been talking for almost 2 hours. So if I didn't have anything of substance, I don't think I would still have over 100 people listening to me 2 hours later. Overall, this live has had 6.5 thousand people listening. So if that's what I was doing, I disagree. I think the facts, the facts disagree with you. All right. Nuts Squawk said, why go to a lawyer? You're anti-college education. I have a college degree, so no. All right, stop asking me these straw man questions. Nuts Squawk. You're taking up too much space in my comments. Angie said, there are still facts out there, and if properly investigated, you can know. Well, who decides what's proper, Angie? You see these subjective terms? I got to be careful with these subjective terms. Proper is a very subjective term. What you consider proper and what I consider proper need not be the same. So we can be in conflict, even though we both think we did something properly. Jay Will said, I absolutely love your perspective. So if y'all can't tell, I'm very big on the language, on words. You got to be very careful with the language you use, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think any of you is doing it in a malicious way, but you got to be careful with the language that you use. These words, these subjective terms, is very easy to deceive people with these. I don't think any of you is trying to deceive, but you got to be careful with the language that you use because people can manipulate you with language. It's very easy to manipulate people with language when you have a strong grasp of the English language. And there are people out there who do it every day and y'all don't even realize that they're doing it. They're so good at it. That's the thing. If you're going to win a political election, for example, you must be very good at manipulating the English language. Trump is good at it. Obama was great at it. Kamala was bad at it. That's one of the reasons why she lost. Hillary was okay. That's why she lost. Bill Clinton was excellent. That's why he won. George W. Bush was great. That's why he won. JFK was great, and that's why he won. A.U. Hunter said, many don't want to accept truth. Yes, that's why they stay away from it. You're correct. Scrapper said, people lie in court every single day. Okay, maybe they do. And if they get caught, what happens to them? It's the law of the United States crossing the border. Yeah, you're right. Scrapper said, Trump included. Well, every politician lies. I've said that many times. To be a successful politician in America, you have no choice but to lie. Because if you tell people the actual truth, you won't win enough votes. So every politician lies. Everyone that I just named. Bush, Gore, Kerry, who came after Kerry? Then it was Obama, McCain, Romney, Trump, Clinton, Biden, Kamala. None of them is exempt from lying. They all lie. You can't win an election without lying. And that's how it works. And Fedekin said the whole truth. That's correct. Problem is things aren't properly investigated. The facts were there. They just weren't investigated on purpose. Okay, I'll give you that one, Angie. That one I'll give you. I'll give you that there were facts there that were kind of people just want to move on because the emotion overpowers the logic. I agree with the direction of what you're saying. I will say that. I do agree with the direction of that. Red Horse. Oh, which book? You got work on your game? All right, that's what's up for getting that book. Red Horse. Congrats on getting that book. Retired says, Trinidad said 1 a month. It won't take you a month to listen to an audiobook. You can listen to an audiobook in a week, Trinidadian Queen. And that's if you listen slow. I speak generally pretty quickly, but I got a strong grasp of the English language. You can listen to one of my books in like 2 days, honestly. And when I listen to audiobooks, I get through a book in like a week, depending on how long it is. But it will not take you a month to read one of my books, Trinidadian. I promise you that. Separation of emotion, facts, and context. To find the truth is the foundation of critical thought. That is correct. Retired Navy veteran, he's got it right. And that's how it works. Let's see. Nut said, it's not a straw man. You told someone to ask a lawyer, or you said college is indoctrination. The educational system in America is indoctrination. All of it. Elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. All of it is indoctrination. That's the way it's designed. I've explained that already in the past. Thank you for the gift. Who's that? Lori Dunham. Thank you for the gift. Diane says, I really appreciate and enjoying you so much. The truth will set you free. Yes, I think it's the truth will make you free, but I get what you're saying. AU Hunter said, language is important. Language is everything. If we can't agree on language, then we can't communicate, and then everything falls apart. Victoria said, the meaning of truth has been poisoned. Everyone has their own truths. Yes, but I get, Victoria, I get what you're saying. But that's not even actually a thing. No such thing as my truth, your truth, his truth, her truth. There's only one truth. But people have kind of bastardized it to get my truth. It's nonsense. No such thing as my truth. Trinidadian said, I'm barely on and always grinding out here, learning and growing. So grateful I found you today. Me too. Shout out to everybody who just found me for the first time today. Make sure y'all follow me on other apps, by the way. I should have said that earlier more. Make sure you follow me on other apps besides just whichever one you're following me on others. I'm on 7 different platforms right now. So whatever other socials you use, I'm on that one too. Please follow me in more than one place, because if I get kicked off any one of these apps, then you should be able to follow me in the other ones. Proper meaning means using actual facts. Just because they're ignored doesn't mean they don't exist. Angie, I agree with that too. But how can you make somebody else use a fact? You can't. That's the problem. User said Kamala cannot articulate. I didn't think she was a very good speaker. And that's part of the reason why she lost. Yes. Let's see. I'm going to take a couple more and then we'll wrap this up. All right. Trinidad is saying on the YouTube and X. Yes. Thank you. All right, everybody. So my company is called Work on Your Game. People keep asking what it is that I do. I have a company called Work on Your Game. Our main focus is our coaching programs. I do coach people one-on-one. I consult people who are in businesses. I do speaking gigs to businesses and sales teams. And we have coaching programs for the everyday person as well. You can find out more about that by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Is the link in my bio, whichever app you're watching me on. I do these lives Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern. Usually I go anywhere from 1 to 2 hours on these lives, 8 a.m. Eastern. I'm on YouTube. YouTube is the app that I've been on the longest. I've been on YouTube for almost 20 years. So make sure all of you go follow me on YouTube. Just look up my name. Just type in Dre Baldwin. I'm very easy to find. If you want to see replays of any of these that I've done, you can find it on YouTube. They'll always be there on YouTube. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Rumble, X, Instagram, and here on TikTok. I got the most people watching me right now on TikTok, and YouTube is in second place right now. But make sure you follow me on more than one app, folks, because we had some shenanigans happen over on TikTok in the past. And I just want to make sure those of you on TikTok, if ever I'm in the middle of a sentence and it just disappears, that's because TikTok decided to kick me off for whatever reason. It happened twice before, and I got suspended. Yesterday, it kicked me off, but then I appealed, and it said, all right, you're all right. I think people reported me yesterday for whatever reason. They didn't like what I was saying. And that might happen again. So make sure if you're following me on TikTok, follow me in other places. But shout out to TikTok at the same time. TikTok is my biggest growing audience right now. I think I'm going to see if we can get I think I got like 7,000 followers on TikTok. And I never used TikTok like that till this year. See if we can get to 10 grand by the end of the month or the end of the year at least. We want to get to 10,000 followers on TikTok. And YouTube, I got like 140,000. Instagram, maybe 20,000. I think my TikTok following is going to pass my Instagram following within the next, probably about like spring of 2025. I think I'm going to have more followers on TikTok than I got on Instagram. Instagram doesn't seem to like the stuff I talk about on these lives, but TikTok seems to like it. So I don't know why, but that's just what it is. So right now, Instagram is not as many people, but TikTok is way more people. I don't know why that is. It's the same material. And shout out to YouTube. Y'all came through strong here on YouTube today. Let me answer a couple more questions over on YouTube, then we'll wrap this up. Let's see. The people were a candidate they can love and like my candidate to get stuff done. All right, that's cool. Tim said had to respect hard to expect the American right wing. Okay, well, your vote, your choice. Michael said, I think Trump will have a great second term. IB Henriksen says the second term will be more group oriented and focused, especially because of Vance. Okay, we'll see. Education is nowhere as important as experience. Okay, fair enough. Pumba Fo. Quincy Hardaway said George W. was great at it. LOL. Yeah, how you think he won 2 elections? How you think you won 2 elections? You have to be to win a presidential election. Question is, has YouTube ever tried to censor me? YouTube won't tell you if they do it. At least TikTok, if they are shutting you down, they'll tell you. YouTube won't tell you. So at least TikTok, they're honest. All right, they'll tell you exactly what's happening. But YouTube won't tell you. They'll do it quietly. Instagram does it quietly. At least one thing I respect about TikTok is that when they try to shut me down, they at least tell me they're doing it. The other apps, they just do it subtly and they don't tell you what they're doing. So it's their platforms. That's the reason why I tell you that I have a university. And any of you who want to reach me directly, you can send me a DM. My assistant will be watching the DMs, or I'll see your DM. And my email address is also in my bio on TikTok. You can just reach out to me directly. I'd rather have you all in a space that I have control over. These apps, I do not control them. So they could all decide, just like they did with that bald-headed guy who lives overseas, who they kicked off all at the same time, just like they did to Trump. They could do it to me. So if you ever see that I'm not consistently doing what I just told you that I do, like going live Monday through Friday, 8 a.m., unless I've otherwise told you I won't be, go look for me in other places or send me an email. I'm still around. As long as I'm alive, we will keep doing what I'm doing here. So Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, ladies and gentlemen, that's where you will find me. And yes, I'm on Spotify. Ashley, what's going on? Good to see you. All right. Yeah. Find me on YouTube. Make sure you follow me in more than one place, folks. And yes, your husband will love it. Trinidadian and Queen. Wait, shout out to your husband. Yes, I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple Podcasts as well. I have a show that comes out every day. It's about 20 to 30 minutes long every episode. It's called Work on Your Game. It's what you all will call a podcast. I call it a masterclass, but it comes out every single day. So if you like the way I break things down here, listen to my show. Again, it's about 20, 30 minutes per day. It's a solo show. I don't have guests. I don't interview people. It's just me talking to you. 20, 30 minutes per day. That one is more evergreen stuff. So that's more personal development, professional development, mindset, entrepreneurship, business. That's what my show is. These lives are the only place where I really talk about like current events at length. So that's what I do with these lives. And again, any one of these lives, if you miss one or you want to watch it again, you can find it on YouTube. My YouTube screen name is Dre UPT, or it might be Dre all day. Just look up my name. Just type in Dre Baldwin. I'm very easy to find. I got literally 13,000 videos on YouTube. So I'm very easy to find on YouTube. Just look my name up. You can find replays of all the stuff that I've done. What else? Next thing is I got to go to the bathroom. I got a coaching call at 11 o'clock. It's already 10:10. Everybody, I appreciate you all. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for your time and attention. Make sure you hit me in the DM or send me an email. You got a question, comment, you want to work with me in my university, have me as your coach, get into our coaching programs, get into our courses. We got plenty of material outside of just this. I do a whole lot of stuff outside of just this. All right. So make sure you find me on all the other apps, folks. I am out here. I'm outside. Riley, I appreciate you. All right. So everybody have a great Friday, great weekend. See you all Monday. We out. Yeah, you're right, Hendrickson. You're correct about that.